It's day 3 of Giant Bomb's 2020 Game of the Year Spectacular, and what a fine day it is to talk about video games on the internet. I'm Brad Shoemaker, joined by Ben Pack, Jason A. Stryker, Jan Ochoa, Alex Navarro, Jeff Gersman, Vinny Caravello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
How is everyone? How are you feeling?
It's great. It's Game of the Year. It's time to celebrate.
That's right.
Loose.
Yes.
Celebrate.
All right.
Game of the Year.
I fell asleep immediately after our last recording, and I just woke up before this one.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Feeling
All
rested then.
Sounds really nice.
Almost. I'm going to take a little nap like halfway through this category, but we'll see.
Okay.
That's what I do.
Have fun with that. Feels good.
Rested.
I'll wake up and be like, hey, this is Rob for Best Dad. And then...
Okay.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's get right into it. We've got 2 categories for today. Our categories for today are Best Game Feel.
Mm.
Best Game Feel.
Mm.
And did we settle on a final Party of the Year? Is that what we're going with?
Yeah.
Party of the Year.
Yeah. Party of the Year.
Print it.
Party of
Print
the
it.
Year.
Wait, what happened to my
Party-
idea of Crew of the
Yeah.
Year?
Crew of the Year was we all agreed that when Alex said
I
that.
thought we agreed.
Still says
It's
Party
written-
of the Year.
It says
I
Party of the
believe
Year
I
on this
didn't agree.
document.
I believe I instead made a Motley Crue joke.
I made
About
That
the
was-
Crew of the Year
I took
brought to
that
you
as
by
agreement.
Motley Crue's tribes.
If we spell it
I
that
took
way,
that
true.
as agreement.
then I am on board. I don't know.
What's
If anyone
the-
knows the- what's the ASCII
Apollo
code for-
Crews
for
presents
new
Party
law?
of the Year.
Anybody know?
For
I just go to
for what?
Wikipedia and copy and paste.
For a U umlaut is what I'm looking
Oh
for.
boy.
All right.
Oh,
We'll worry
boy.
about it when we get
A
there.
umlaut.
Control 01. Oh, damn.
All right.
You know what? Let's not do anything that might accidentally close Windows here. Let's not worry about that.
Look, we
That's
got
right.
a whole
Everybody-
category to get through before we have to worry about that stuff. So let's get
Yeah.
right down to it. Standard Game of the Year deliberation rules apply. There might be spoilers in here at some point. We will try to do our best to give you a heads up.
The Crew
There's gonna be
category will
blood.
probably have a fair amount
Knives.
of spoilers.
Be warned.
Gnashing of teeth.
That's right.
Mm.
Okay. All right. Best game feel.
Mm.
I think
Mm.
this category came about because we have not traditionally done a lot of awards that recognize gameplay.
We
Mm.
should,
You know?
damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that's always been reserved for just like the overall game of the year.
Right.
But yeah, there's oftentimes, you know how you just do something and you're like, wow, this feels good, and you want to keep doing
Yeah.
it, like
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
like
yeah.
knob feel,
Yes.
but for games.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
That's right.
Uh,
It's like best
it's
tile
like-
feel is a subsection
Yeah.
of this category.
Oh, I
Yeah.
have a last minute addition then.
calling
Okay.
it best controls would be a little limiting, but it's kind of
Nah,
Yeah.
ballpark.
It's part of it. I mean,
Yeah.
I think
Sorta,
in another year,
you know.
this would be the Titanfall 2 award. It's the game where you just
The
really
Dead Cells
love the way it feels.
Award.
That was
Yeah.
my initial pitch on this category was Titanfall 2 presents the running around is real good award. And then it evolved into
Yeah.
this because
Yeah.
it's more than running around. It's I think Jeff kind of nailed it. There is a flow from you to the game and the game back to you that just feels right. Like you input the control, something beautiful happens on the screen and comes back to you, and you're like, damn, that was choice.
That felt good.
Games,
Or like
Or
here's
something
this
terrible
interaction
happens.
that I just want to keep interacting with. Like
Yes.
I want to keep slapping this thing around because the way it responds to me is real fun.
games that feel the best to play. That's what we're doing here. All right.
Yeah.
Here's the list that we have got so far. Hades, Ghost Runner, Scourgebringer, Spellbreak, One Step from Eden, Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Doom Eternal, Proteus, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Kunai. God, did that come out this year? The Pathless,
Right.
Neo 2, Heartspace Shipbreaker, Teardown, Carrion, Fuser, Crash Bandicoot 4, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, Astro's Playroom.
Kunai did come out this year. You had me second
Yeah,
guessing myself.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I
checked it
meant-
out.
I meant that more in the sense that like that might as well have been 3 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, those are some good playing games.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well,
Hey,
yeah. In some cases, it's not even that like the whole game plays well. It's there's a
Specific
An aspect,
maybe.
you know
Thing about it.
Yeah, there's a portion of the way it moves or feels that stands out, I think, too. So that's just to say I don't want people to get caught up on like the totality of a game, though. I think we would probably bias in favor of like if a whole game has that game feel versus like one sequence. Like let's say if a lock-picking mini game was over the top great, it could be in here, even if the rest of the game was garbage. But at the end of the day, if there's some full game that you're like, maybe how good is this lock-picking mini game really?
Well, I think that's a good segue into a game we were just talking about, Kunai. If you don't remember, Kunai is like a Metroidvania kind of 2D game, and the main hook, or should I say hooks, is there's a lot of swinging around. You have these little kunai on strings that you basically use as grappling hooks. And I'm on record as being a huge grappling hooks in games fan, connoisseur even. And kunai just has it right. Like you can do the thing where since you have two of them, you can kind of shoot them up on either end of a platform and kind of slingshot your way up. You can do some classic swinging. The combat is fine. It's very kind of standard 2D action platformer fare, but it's really nice in this game that the movement is so good because it's a Metroidvania, because you find yourself going through that map so often to find secrets and revisiting old areas. And when you get good at the movement, you just fucking fly through that zone.
This game does what I wish Flint Hook did. Flint Hook was like another grappling hook game, but that was only on fixed points. Here, it's pretty much every surface except for like a couple, like this is metal, so you can't stick your kunai into it, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of backtracking in the game, so like the zipping around just felt really good. The combat, you're right, like it didn't, for something that kind of tries to evoke like you're a weird computer face samurai, that aspect of it didn't resonate well, but the zipping around on kunais made me want to maybe tie some rope or some chains to a kunai and try it out for myself.
A lot of things you could do with that. You could stick it into somebody and pull them over your way and give them an uppercut. You can swing around. The possibilities are really endless.
You could get them over here, is what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Kunai with chain.
Yeah.
I think we could drop it. I just wanted to give that game a little shout out somewhere in our awards, and this felt like the right category to do so. You should play it if you are into those kinds of games. It was like, I don't know, 6-7 hours, I think.
It's very short.
Yeah, watching you play that for that quick look, it's got something going on for sure.
It's
got a hook to it.
It's got two hooks.
Oh, yeah.
They're
I like that.
kunais, though. It's not a hook.
I think I kind of inherently distrust a person who doesn't appreciate a good grappling hook in a video game.
Right.
Who is that?
I feel like that's like who is that person?
Who would be brave enough to admit that in public?
But I think, like there's nothing like a good grappling hook, man.
Right.
For the longest time, it was just Bionic Commando. It seemed like, and
I don't know in modern context if I would call that a good grappling hook.
no,
Grappling hook
certainly.
is Wrecking Ball in Overwatch.
It had to start somewhere.
Have you played Ninja 5.0 for the GBA?
Oh, Ninja
I have.
5.0.
Oh, that's a good grappling hook.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe it might not make it through the other end of this category as we look it over. But
I wrote down Miles Morales here, and it's probably not going to make top 3. Like the swinging is still fantastic. Like all of you getting around the city is still fantastic. I mean, it is kind of more or less exactly the same as the previous one.
I think it's a little
I will
cleaner
say,
than the last one.
I think the thing they do though is they start you with like most of the things you need to complete that system. Like remember the previous Spider-Man game puts a lot of that stuff on the tech tree, and like so playing Miles Morales and then going back and playing remastered after that was like this big jump of like, oh, I can't do like all the things that make this game good. I can no longer do because they're all on the tree. And in Miles Morales, there's a couple of things on. You have to go do the combat challenges or the stealth challenges to unlock a few. Or the traversal challenges, actually, specifically to get a couple of things. A couple of new ones. I think the one where you can hit X a second time and get a second just forward boost in midair without having to touch down first, I think is new to that game.
I
It might
could
be.
I
I
could be
think
wrong
you can
about
do. I think you can do 2, but maybe there's a third you eventually get in Miles. I'm trying to.
forget.
It's
I
been
mean,
a little bit, but
the thing about the game that is definitely new, and the thing that I actually want to talk about was some of the Venom powers, because some of those
Yeah.
Venom powers feel pretty fucking good to you.
They
My
really
favorite
do.
one is still the one you start with, the basic. What is it? Just L1 square, just the Venom punch. It's just
Yeah.
a basic punch that hits one guy, but man, like every single time I did that, I was like, man, I want to do that again right now.
It's a really good impact, but also I think the launcher ended up becoming my favorite because it's like he will hit the ground and pop guys up, and then the air combat in that game is fun. So like having a really good, having a good party starter to just go fuck you guys and then jump up there and take care of them. That felt really good too.
The inverse of that, the ground pound, which basically you just slam down instead of up, and people, like that one is equally good. The main reason I like that punch so much is because, with like one exception, you use it to bust right through the guys who are usually really shitty about making you like break their defense first, like the big guys and some of the other enemies that have like mitigation that normally sort of cancels your basic attacks. you pull that thing out, and you're just like fuck you, and like go right through it. But like that's probably my biggest complaint with the game is that later on I feel like they pour the enemies that can block those abilities on a little too heavy in spots. I think like there's like one or two too many types of enemies that can like, well, these guys can resist your venom. These guys, you can't do this to them or you can't do that to them. Like there's a little bit too much of like a combat
or
puzzle.
the weird Ivy Soul Calibur sword guys. Like you have to like knock them out of
these guys. You have to dash before you can hit them. These guys you have to pop up before. Yeah, it's you got that stuff. Like they mitigate the fun parts of those abilities a little too much for me.
You're right. I think that's something like that's a delicate balance because I think if they don't do that, that combat is way too easy. And
I like the additional layer.
They kind of need another.
The parts where that really irked me were like the Roxxon side mission dungeon like reactor levels. If you know what I'm talking about? Like trying to get the bonus objectives in those. It's like, okay, get a 60 hit combo on these guys. Like that got real fiddly when they could block most of your shit, and like it was really hard to hit that combo number. But like basic fights, it was not a huge problem. But I think that game does play really well. I don't know if it makes it into top 3.
I think in with a lot of its things coming from a previous game, I think that's probably the thing I would say works against it the most. Like they definitely have done work to it. I mean, I think
it's a
kind of
refinement.
across the board. Yeah, it is. I think it's across the board. I think that's a much better game than the first Spider-Man. But yeah,
Neo 2 is actually going to be like very similar in that respect. In that, a lot of what was done in this game has been done in the previous game. I really like the flow and the loop of that combat. Not only do you have different stances that you can swap into at any different times, like a high, medium, low, which will give you completely different subset of moves. But you've got a good like key pulse thing afterwards, which helps you replenish stamina. The layer that they added on this time around is this like demon power. Essentially, you get like one of 3 demons, and they'll give you a different type of like a parry ability or like a really big iframe dodge or something like that. So they did do some work to it, but for the most part, by and large, it's the same as the first game. But saying that, like I still really love it. It still feels really good. It's very high in my top 10, but I don't think it's gonna make top 3 here. But I'd love you. I love you so much.
Neo 2 loves you back, Jason.
Awesome.
No, it does not. Neo 2 wants
Neo
you dead
hates
over and
us.
over again.
A true Jason
love.
game.
Has fondness for Jason then.
That's right. You know what that makes it.
The Jason game of the year.
That's right.
Officially.
Let's see what else we got here.
One Step from Eden. I didn't put this on the list, but it does have kind of good tile feel. One Step from Eden is the game that is Mega Man Battle Network, but on crack, because instead of pausing in between to select your spells, you're just constantly going. And it's kind of a chaotic pace that took a long time for me personally to get used to, because I'm just used to that respite that you get when you can like hit L and R on in Battle Network to select your new loadout for whatever. But here, like everything is constantly going. But there's a specific boss that's like a kind of like a music instrument performer lady, and that turns the game into a rhythm game. But what I want to add to that is that like the whole game kind of feels like there's this weird spastic rhythm to it, to all the combat encounters of like, okay, like I see these guys on the board, I gotta like make these sets of maneuvers, and it's very punching at first, but once you get acclimated to the flow of the game, it does feel very rewarding in a sense. And just like in Battle Network, when you'd have you'd select like a sword chip and you'd wind up dashing like 3 squares ahead to slice a dude, this has that similar thing, and that feels really good. Also, when you finish the encounter, it's a good like slow-mo, like everything's dissolving, here's all my rewards and stuff. The parts where it doesn't feel good is when the enemy, your own tiles are all highlighting because you're about to get just killed by everything, and lasers and meteors are shooting from the opposite side of the field onto yours. That part doesn't feel good. Also, when you accidentally shoot like a friendly on the other side. One Step from Eden, amazing game. I can't relax while playing it though, and that part does not feel good. I want to chill sometimes.
All right, shall I drop it? Sounds like
Drop it.
Drop it.
Jeff.
I don't have the.
No,
I've replaced it.
Spilled all over it. Drop it.
The problem, I need a taller monitor stand so I can have more buttons hooked up. This stupid audio interface has like the world's worst soundboard on it. That's not true. There are way worse, but the Stream Deck is a much worse soundboard, for example.
Yes.
There have been 2 late additions to the list.
Okay.
Cool.
Oh.
I think they're early editions. We're not that deep in yet. They're like mid
Well, I
game.
mean, they were after everything was red. Is a lot.
Yeah.
Did you
So we gotta
write
read
Star
them.
Wars? Did you write Star Wars Squadrons on here? Because I thought about it and I didn't quite get myself there.
Yeah,
But
I
I
did, but I don't.
see it.
I didn't put it on as I think as something that's going to make the top 3. I put it on as something to maybe just talk through with people who've played it, because there are
Let me
parts
ask you
of
this.
that game. Yeah,
Let me ask you this: Can neck input factor into this category?
does it feel good? Is
Yeah,
it responsive? Is it working?
It's VR. Looking around in that cockpit.
Is it in the
pretty
flow? You get that loop. Get that loop going?
was it on these awards that I talked about? I mean, it does become gameplay relevant in some certain ships, depending on like how much view you have outside of the cockpit. Like it is full on, like you're following ships above you that you're dogfighting and stuff. I'm not making a serious argument.
Yeah.
It should be.
Well, I was mostly thinking just like controlling those different ships. Does it feel like did it feel good to get into that X-wing and to drift an X-wing to boost it around, flip over, and I'm like back and forth on it. It was like fiddly enough where it didn't,
yeah,
but
didn't.
like when I hit it, it felt okay. There were parts that felt good on the flight stick where you do the drift turn thing to get 180, and then you slam the throttle to go forward and divert all your engines to boost, and like it all at least on the flight stick all felt good because you're flipping switches, and that felt cool. But I don't know, it also launched a pretty lousy dead zone on the flight stick stuff, and that felt terrible. I think that's been fixed by now, but I don't think it's going to make top 3.
I
just
don't
kinda-
either. But I think they did like
think a lot of that
surprisingly good job translating the controls of those games to a controller. Like, better
Yeah,
than
but I
thought.
think like that's something like hearing you talk about the flight stick is like, oh right, that's probably why because I felt like the drift boost turn stuff felt bad because it was never as smooth as I wanted it to be. It was always one more like, oh, I got to divert this, do this. It was one too many presses for something that should have been just like, let me do this cool shit right here.
Yeah.
And
it was
yeah.
not dissimilar on the flight stick, and like I said, it was always a bit fiddly until I put enough hours in to kind of know what the game wanted, but it wasn't intuitive. Like that difference of like, I know what you want me to do, but it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like
that is so. The first time the game said like, hey, do this, I was like, okay, I think I know how to do this. I've read the instructions about how to do this, and I couldn't make it do it for a little while.
Same
like,
here.
okay.
Yeah.
It took a while to get it.
Yeah.
And even
I
then,
watched
it didn't
a video.
feel great.
I had to watch a video of somebody being like, "What am I doing wrong here? I can get this like 1 out of 3 times."
They,
So
they,
yeah,
they
I-
built some-
I
they
thought the
built
game
some
felt very
audio.
sluggish in the cockpit. I didn't like the feel of that game.
They built some audio
much.
cues in that I found kind of hard to keep up with. Like there's an audio cue for like the level of your engines when you cross over like optimal power distribution or something like that. I forget how that worked exactly, but like I found those hard to keep up with in the middle of a fight.
See, the nice thing on the flight stick was, at least on mine, the throttle has a detent, so it's like notches in when you're at that thing, and then you push past it, and then yeah. I mean, it's one of the reasons I didn't put flight sim on here as well. I don't know enough about how planes should feel, and B, it's a very, I think, controller dependent thing. Like, you know, if you have a bad flight stick setup, or if you're using mouse and keyboard, your mileage will vary considerably. But yeah, I had fun with it on the HOTAS, but I think it didn't nail it like across the board. So I think it comes off.
Okay.
Bye. Take it off. Bye.
Game's all right.
Bye.
Yeah,
Can
totally. The game's all right.
The other one that went on there is Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah, I threw that on there. I think it's my favorite action RPG combat to date. I played Final Fantasy 15. I'm not like big on traditional JRPGs. I like a little more action combat. So I played 15, and I was like, "There's something here," but they didn't quite nail it. And then I feel like playing Final Fantasy 7 Remake, specifically beating it and then going through and trying to play it on hard, where it really forces you to use the full extent of that combo system. I should even just say Final Fantasy Remake : playing as Tifa, because that is the most fun thing in that game. She has incredible combos. She feels like a fighting game character. You know, you can set up like straight up combos and launchers and stuff, and then you like switch to Aerith and blast a spell. I really liked that game. The first time I realized I was having a good time with it, with the combat, was fighting Hell House. I feel like that's the first time that game pushes you to start being like, okay, you have to start using the elemental weaknesses. You have to start switching up your characters. You can't just mash your way through. I don't know what else there is to say about it. I think the being able to kind of freeze the active battle and have it kind of slowly like drift as you're playing it and kind of take a second to think about your next move was a really nice touch.
I think it should stick around for now, because there's moments even with Cloud as well that I found to be very satisfying and felt good, like being able to trigger like your allies' abilities on the fly at the same time getting yours off is just super satisfying, and like you felt like in control of like, okay, this is what combat with a party should be if it's like action oriented. And you know, coming from someone that's played all of the Kingdom Hearts games, where your AI companions are just not the best people, sure, but like best playing, it's very frustrating. Here, having that control over everyone was a breath of fresh air. And
it really worked well in concert.
Yeah.
Ben mentioned being able to pause combat kind of briefly, and then let stuff play out, and then you still have active control. It felt really good.
Yeah,
I think the only knock I would put against it personally is some of the spell tracking stuff felt weird. Like the fact that at certain distances, your spells wouldn't always hit, and it was hard to gauge. There was no like marker or indicator that you were out of range or something, but sometimes an enemy would just move too fast. I was frustrated a lot by that early on, but it's one of those things where the more you play, the more you start to get a sense for the ranges just naturally.
really
And what do you think
menus.
of the stance change stuff? Basically the heavy attack with flurry attack, or
I liked that, and I really liked eventually you got a move with Cloud that was like a special move that ended with a stance change. So like you at a certain point didn't even have to worry about manually doing it. If you knew your combos well enough, you could be like, okay, I'm going to use one of my pips to go into this stance, the like brave mode or whatever, and then we'll just wail on a broken enemy.
That's just Virtua Fighter at that point.
Oh, should we put Virtua Fighter in Yakuza on this list?
So keep it on for now.
Keep it on for now.
I think keep it on for now.
Okay.
Winning the category, Virtua Fighter and Quake 2 RTX. Sorry.
I threw on Scourgebringer. I love that game. I think it just barely didn't make my top 10 just because it's still early access and they're still adding a lot of stuff, and I 100%ed it in about 4 hours. Scourgebringer is like a 2D series of combat arenas, rogue, randomly generated level kind of game. It's very action heavy, and the thing that stood out to me almost immediately about the game is there's a great air dash. It's like huge. It's like a quarter of the screen you can go up to. And then it does a thing of if you hit an enemy after an air dash, you can air dash again. So when you're really cooking in that game, you literally never touch the ground. You're just like,
looks like it's out of early
around.
access now. Looks like it left early access in October.
Okay, I was meaning to check back in on it. I just didn't have the time. Yeah, it just feels. I don't know. I've seen a lot of people compare it to like. It's like a weird version. It's the closest somebody's come to making like a 2D Doom, or just that kind of like everything. You get such a flow going when you get into it. And then there's like special moves and stuff. You can keep the combo going. There's a combo meter, so you're incentivized to just always be wailing on dudes. And the combo meter will like give you extra currency, I think. It's been a minute since I played, but I just that game I completely fell in love with. I think it's some of the best feeling 2D action stuff I played this year.
That movement is really good. I had forgotten about Scourgebringer. That movement is really awesome. Like that dash, you're right, it feels good.
And there's like a good parry in it as well. You know, it feels like it is made by people who really understand what makes a 2D game fun. It can go, because I know it doesn't have a ton of support here. And honestly, I think I would pick even 3 games above it.
Okay.
That are on this list. So
okay. I was gonna say, I'm trying to look at what we've got left here and going like, well, actually that might be enough to stick, but yeah, maybe not if you're not going to.
I want to say that the movement in Carrion feels fucking amazing. And
really?
I think
I want to say that I did not like the controls.
Man.
Yeah, I want to say I'm somewhere in the middle, where the bigger you got, the more finicky it got.
Let me finish. I think.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
If you removed the entirety of the tentacle thing, the whole apparatus, like turn off the tentacle system, and it was just the blob, I think it would be like completely unremarkable. Like I imagine it's just like moving a cursor around the screen at that point, right? Because that's like you're not constrained by any like platform height or any. You can go anywhere in that game, right? Like it's not like, oh, I can't jump high enough to get up here. It's like you can literally just float wherever you want. They just dress it up with this insane tentacle thing that I assume must be procedural because it's just balls out constant tentacles all the time. Maybe it's more that it looks amazing as you are doing this pretty rudimentary movement, if that makes sense. The first time I put my hands on was it the Game Awards demo? They put out some weird demo like in the middle of Extra Life like a year plus ago.
Oh, yeah, right. It was that one.
It was the first time I'd ever seen the game and put my hands on it. I was just like, man, this just feels like liquid monster oozing around the screen all the time. I don't know. I thought it moved really well, but I think a lot of that is a visual.
It did. I think visually, it's very interesting. It felt a little, I don't know, there wasn't a lot of feedback to like how if I was doing it right, I guess. Even when I played the demo, like in front of the developers, they were getting frustrated with me because I was getting frustrated with the controls. I couldn't figure out how to do stuff, and maybe that's on me. But also maybe make the game easier to play. I don't know. Maybe
it's not necessarily a difficulty thing. It's just a there's some ambiguity in that movement.
Yeah, there you get very large, engorged. You get very big by the end of that game, and some of that gets a little tough because the enemies also get they can whittle you down pretty quickly. So like tucking in like your prehensile butt or something into a space can be tough to find the right, like where you want it, because you're never quite sure what you're controlling on that thing as it gets big, like which portion of it, of the mass. So you're like, oh, I need to get tucked in here, otherwise this flamethrower is going to get me. And sometimes it would be tough to navigate around there. But yeah, like the little like sticky attachments and feet that would come out are great. But I think as you got bigger, it gets weird.
It's telling that you can like deposit parts of yourself in a locker, right?
Biomass.
Pick it up later.
Yeah, I mean that game's an odd puzzle game in some ways, where you're like, okay, I got to deposit biomass to get different abilities that aren't necessarily better or worse, but they're different. Yeah. It's weird.
It's a weird game. It sounds like there's not a ton of support for that, but I was super impressed with the way it looks / moves.
Hey, did you know you get 2 prehensile tentacles later on as an upgrade? Yeah, think about that. Think about what you could do with that. That's a good time.
I could leave a lot of biomass in a lot of lockers.
Wait, is this Yakuza?
Yeah.
Gross.
I think we can take off the pathless. I don't know how many other people other than Ben and I have played it.
I played a decent chunk of it. I was going to ask, like the basic movement in that game is pretty eye-opening. I was like, wow, this thing fucking moves. Holy shit.
Yeah.
But, like, does it evolve much? Does that change over time?
No, not so much.
Really.
I only got about an hour and a half into it, maybe.
Yeah, and I think like that's a good glimpse of most of the game. You'll unlock bird movement abilities, with your bird being able to like lift you up a little bit. But being able to zip across the map, especially when like fast travel isn't really a thing in the game, is neat. And you feel good shooting those targets as you're running across. You feel like, oh, I would be an elite archer, hunter, jelly bean person. And the thing that it does with the bird stuff and being able to traverse verticality feels really neat. I just don't think it's strong enough to hang here with some of the other titles. Just want to give a shout out to the pathless, because you could zip across that map and the whole time it feels good, and like you
that
can kind of
like really good. But then if you ever hit a point where you don't have any of those zips left and you don't have any stamina, it's a little a little bit of a bummer.
There's definitely some maintenance going on constantly to keep that meter recharged.
Yeah, in the tighter. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. In the tighter moments of the game, it does feel a little bit wonky, because like you're still walking or running with the momentum, but like you're not able to traverse like the tighter moments in the game where it's more puzzle oriented well enough compared to the bigger open areas.
I just wanted to say that flying around the world in that game feels like skiing in Tribes, and that's pretty awesome.
Oh, true.
I want to say, when you yelled tighter, I thought you were doing tiger, like a tiger uppercut.
Tiger!
It says somebody playing a sample right now, because it really tighter.
Sagatting it up over here.
That's me.
Yoga Flame.
Do you guys want to talk about Doom for a moment? Because
I
really like how Doom Eternal felt. I just didn't like how hard they went on making you do that thing.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
Like my first few hours of Doom Eternal I had a great time, and then I didn't have as much of a great time after that.
Like the I guess the classic example to me is the Arachnotron with the turret on its head, and like that turret fucks you up, and you need to take that turret off as soon as you see it so you don't get fucked up. I always use the sticky grenade out of the shotgun for that, so it was like this lob. It's like, all right, I need to gauge this arc and land it on this tiny target. And the first like 30 times I did that, I was like, man, that feels really good. And then by the end of that game, I was like, I gotta shoot another one of these off, right? Okay, fine.
I think my problem with that game, that game feels great because its predecessor felt incredible. Like I feel like Doom 2016 would win this category in a weird way. But Doom Eternal, I think the way they expanded on it, it's a great example. Like on paper, I think everything they did in Doom Eternal is sensible, and you look at it and go, great, you've built upon these mechanics in really interesting ways. And then the way the combat encounters are built in that game, it feels restrictive, and it feels like there is a checklist and you are to play this game this specific way to exceed. And it is things like, okay, I've got to get this turret off, this, like, you know, it very quickly becomes, I need to assess what enemies I'm facing right now, what are the most dangerous targets here, and I need to do these things in this order, and then use this item to do this, and then hit this and do this. And like when you do all that, it's like a Sonic the Hedgehog problem, or you know, like you were saying about the Pathless, in a way of like, when you're doing all those things and it has become this second nature thing, the flow is incredible. But the minute you snap out of it, that game feels terrible. And you're like, everything about this feels bad. And you have to, the ramp to get back into that state is like, you're almost like going back to the start of a checklist. Like, it's like, oh, here's how I start the engine on this plane. Like, okay, need to shoot this off, do this, change to this weapon, do this, chainsaw this guy. You know, like the resource management and cooldown management, like that aspect of Doom Eternal, I think gets in the way of its best qualities. And it's not just that it uses the same feel. Like, it has a lot of the same feel as Doom 2016, but the game they built around that feel, it robs it to me of a lot of like the freeform fun that first game had, where I felt like even in the most hectic situations, I could bebop my way around those combat encounters and find ways to win, even if I wasn't doing everything perfectly. And this one, it just, I'm sure this isn't the case because no studio does this without playtesting externally, but it feels like a game that no one outside the studio ever played before it came out. Everyone there was so bought in on a concept and a notion of what they wanted to do that it just feels like they never tried to put, I'm sure they did, but it feels like they never tried to put it in front of people that weren't already bought in. And they like, put it, you know, they put it in front of me before it came out, and they put a demo in like a very tight chunk of the game, and you could see it and go like, oh, this is all like, I came away from that going like, this is awesome. But like the full game of that, less so. And it's not even a difficulty thing. Like, it's not like, oh, I got knocked out of this flow state and now I'm dead. Oh, boo-hoo. Right. It's like, you know, you can still worm your way out of those encounters and get back to where you need to go. It's not that it's like super hard. It's just that it's not as much fun. And the tool set they give you is
the most pointed example of what you guys are talking about to me is the acrobatics and the mobility that they added in, because you've got a dash. I can't remember if you had a dash in 2016, but you've got like a double dash now. You know, it's on a quick cooldown. You can literally dash twice in a row, and it works in any direction. It's not just forward. It's like whichever direction you are moving when you dash, including backwards, you can dash that way. And that sounds awesome, except that half the time I dashed backwards to try to kite enemies around, I would like get stuck in a corner or get stuck on enemies that were behind me that I didn't know were there. So it's like, here's this awesome ability that I keep misusing by running into parts of the environment that should have probably been maybe a little more open. And like, there's those pole vaults, there's like horizontal bars you can jump into, and you'll sort of magnetize onto them and like do a swing. And like, I was constantly air dashing around and feeling great. And then I would just like barely clip the sort of bounding box or whatever of the thing. And next thing I know, I'm swinging on a bar I didn't want to be grabbing because it was just barely there off to the side. Like, it has all these
parts on the ground. Like, let's not forget.
Yeah, that's right.
The parts where they tried to kind of make it a platformer, it's like, it's an interesting thing that they've done, but I don't think that made the game better.
It's got, like you said, it's got a ton of very cool new abilities in a vacuum that maybe don't all get used or don't work in concert with some of the level design as well as I would like.
It's not even, I think there's that, but also it feels like it's a lot of cool stuff that isn't open to a free form. It feels like, you know, you will do this and this, and like, it very much feels like that game feels rigid to me. It doesn't feel like a fun flow state. It's like a required flow state almost.
I mean, they talked
like,
about,
you will play this way.
They talked about how they didn't like that you could beat all of 2016 using the super shotgun. They're like, we didn't want players to just have their one weapon and go through it. We wanted to challenge players to use all of the weapons. And on one hand, you know, I ultimately respect their design. It's their game. They can design it how they want. On the other hand, like, the number one thing I hate most about gamers is when they say you didn't play it right. You didn't play this right. You did something like you needed to do this. You should have done this. You should have played on this difficulty. And it felt like it was the game telling me you're not playing this right, even though like it's like them punishing us for a game, enjoying a game how we wanted to enjoy it. Like it's that same feeling I got.
For working outside the bounds of what they think you should be doing.
Yeah,
It's the same
it's overly
feeling I
restricted.
got from like Sakurai intentionally adding tripping to Brawl when he was like, I don't like that people are taking this so seriously. I'm going to put this mechanic in the game so that they cannot have the fun that they want to. They should play it how I want to.
He was making the game fun for more people by making it a worse time for bad people. That's noble. Tripping is noble.
It's just it got a little too technical for me. I think that's what kind of knocked me out of it. This was the introduction of the weak points, right? That was this one.
Well,
I think
there might be a tiny little bit of that in the previous one.
where you're like,
really.
yeah, like I don't know, like I get why people love it in that sense, but I had a lot of trouble controlling the arenas and the battlefields in a less fun way. Where I felt like in the first one, I don't know. It felt like I was playing dodgeball in the first one. This one felt a little more like chess, like a overpowered dodgeball idiot. And this one was like a lot more strategic thinking, which is going to be appealing to a lot of players. But
It's
not what I come to do for.
rip and tear.
It can be very satisfying, like the Slayer gates, which are the super hard challenges off to the side that
Totally.
unlock the last weapon if you do them all. Like those are probably the best time I had with that game. And like, I don't think it's a coincidence that those are pretty big, open, just generic environments without a lot of stuff in your way. Like they're kind of pure, almost just like design test combat sandbox type levels, and that's where
It looked like they would be like good tight deathmatch levels in a way.
Yeah,
some of those.
Yeah.
That game can be very cool, but it's a little top heavy, or it's
in its own way.
collapses under its own weight just a little bit, which
Like over designed a little bit or over direct, like.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then,
but
so
very snappy controls. Also plays way better on a mouse and keyboard, unlike the first game, which I had a very good time with on a controller. This one, not as much.
Did anyone else other than me and Brad check out Proteus?
I played some of it. Yeah.
What'd you think?
I think it's really cool, but I don't know that I felt like the feel of it was super remarkable. I just thought the whole thing was neat, but I don't know
that played really well.
Yeah. No, I don't think it plays bad at all. I just maybe I didn't play quite enough of it, but I came away from going like, that's really neat. I will check more of it out later. But other than just the whole concept, like no individual aspect of it, like from a feel perspective, really jumped out at me.
The charge shot on the shotgun stands out in my mind as like the thing that I remember from that. You can just charge up the shotgun and get way more damage and just a much more powerful shot, which feels really good.
Keep it charged so you can just be like running through a hallway and just you open a door, there's a guy there, and you just plow one shot him.
Yeah, but I mean, they very
rockets.
Like they very effectively recreate the feel of a 90s shooter. It's very fast and twitchy and precise, and it feels great.
Yeah. I don't think it ultimately is one of the top 3. It's also still in early access. It has a lot. It seems like a full game already, and they already have like community maps and stuff. Definitely worth checking out. If you, I don't even have an affinity for like original Quake, and I was hooked.
Yeah, there's a lot there for it being early access.
Well, what do we like in this category so far? I mean, what are the things we think we need to hang on to? Because we're cutting.
Yeah, I wanted to know if any wants to go to bat for Bloodstained or not.
Okay. They're gonna do something else. Where the cursor was. Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon 2. It is tight. It controls and feels like you would expect it to control and feel. I think the character switching is instant and very good. It does the thing where you kind of can just switch characters and you're paused in the air kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about? Like you just flip. And I like that. I like that it does that. Because I always overshot the character and was like shit. And some of the puzzles had you doing that, and that felt very good. I don't think it would be in my top 3, but it does feel good. I think the secondary weapons are are cool and interesting. The guy with the gun who gets interesting secondary weapons that, he's got a big old blast that pushes him back a little bit.
Robert.
Robert. Yeah. And it's like
how many runs
that,
came down to just Robert?
Robert MVP.
Robert just slinking around, but then he gets this like mega shot, which will push you back just enough. And in those Castlevania like games, that's the difference between slipping off a platform. And so that stuff is cool. I think they hit it, but I think it's not doing too much new. They're hitting a formula, which they should kind of hit since given the pedigree there. I don't think.
They still got the knockback damage in that game.
Oh yeah. But hey, then use the corgi and the giant robot that can go invincible. You know what I'm saying?
That's a good corgi.
If you're worried about that, but yeah, I don't think it would be in the top 3 here for me.
Okay,
fun game though. It's tight. It's a tight game.
There's a couple on here.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a couple on here that I think are very strong contenders for me, and they are Hades and they are Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
There are others that I think could definitely qualify, but they are not necessarily ones that I have played that much of. So I will cede those to others to speak on. But I think for me, Hades and Tony Hawk were the 2 games where I most found myself remarking, "God damn, this feels good."
Yes. Agreed.
So I put Teardown on here, and it's one I really want to get behind because I think if that game were firing on all cylinders, it would be in my top 3. But a lot of the time, when you do the thing that feels the best, the game starts to slow down and crumble in a way that if you took that bulldozer through the building and the whole thing was running even at 30. I think it would feel even better, but it starts to chug and fall apart in a way that's like, it's as bad in a way that's a little satisfying because it feels like I shouldn't be doing this, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's also there are a lot of cases where it feels like, all right, this is going to be the swing that takes this building out and it's going to be amazing. And then you hit it and it just goes, you're like, shit. And I wonder if they need to cheat it a little bit to be a little more dynamic in some of those situations. But yes, the feel of like getting in a construction vehicle and just barreling through a fucking brick wall to break into a building
is so good.
Outstanding in that game.
I think there's that water level or the level where you're in the boats and you get in that like weird ferry thing, and if you just back that thing into the pier, it just starts crumbling. The boat starts breaking.
Grinds the boat apart. It's just
driving vehicles into buildings is maybe my favorite thing in that game.
There was a part where I was trying to escape. I don't know if this was on the stream or not. I was trying to escape at the very end there, and I was in a sports car, and it did the thing where there was like a gate that was too low and just sheared the top off the car as I was going. A lot of stuff feels so good in that game. Later on, you get the planks to connect stuff with, where you can like basically tape or nail stuff together. That stuff feels pretty good, but it's just I think it's tough.
It just needs a little more time.
Like
I think it can get there, but yeah, like there's an aspect of Teardown's slowdown that I actually really like because it feels like when it happens, it's I think I talked about it on this week's Beastcast. But it's that feeling of I deserve this slowdown because of how much shit I'm fucking up right now. Like that, it's like this is what I get because I am trying to blow up everything all at once. And it's the same feel that like Gary's mod would have at times of just like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I deserve what I'm getting here. Oh, the server crashed because of how many bikes and dominoes I just stacked on top of each other. And Teardown has some of that in it, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, like, that game just needs to perform better because I think even, you're just tossing a propane tank into a chimney, even in the very first level, and it chunks up in a certain way that's just like, it just doesn't feel right.
Not there yet.
But
I think the feel in that game is I love the feel in that game because it gives me that sense of like, why you shouldn't be allowing me to do this, but you are.
Yeah.
Like, let's do it. And that's a great feeling because the tools they give you for the most part feel great. Even the blowtorch everything feels like it should be reacting to the world in the way it should, or they put the slider all the way up. It generally doesn't feel like they put the slider down sometimes. So yeah, I don't know. It's not quite there yet. Maybe next year, tear it down if you come out next year. But keep going at it. Maybe tweak the physics a little bit too, so the weight of buildings collapse on themselves a little better. Sometimes it feels like you have like one pixel holding a building up, and that doesn't feel great. But when you find it, it feels great.
There's a guard tower in, I think it's like the second level, that's all made of wood, and it's right around the time you get the blowtorch. And I love just going over there and just cutting the legs on it, and then just waiting for it to burn through, so it eventually just falls over.
It's cool. It's cool.
Real good.
I put Astra's Playroom on here, and I'm not sure how fair it is because like the haptics are part of that. I mean, I guess it's in the controller. I mean, that is part of the feel.
That absolutely
I think
matters.
that counts.
Yeah.
Some of the, I mean, most of the movement and abilities in that game are pretty standard video game fare. You know, it's a double jump and a hover and a punch and a spin. Like it's 3D platformer shit. But some of the like vehicle-ish mini games with the triggers are actually kind of awesome. Like the robot gorilla climbing one. Like there's spots in that where like you actually can't pull the trigger too far or you fail. Like they use the resistance in there to make you realize like, oh, I can only go. In fact, I have to go only this far and no further, or I will lose my grip and fall. And like that was a pretty creative use of those triggers, that hardware.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Does that fit? I guess that fits here.
I think it does. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that stuff does feel great. I think what feels less great in that game is that some of the, and maybe this is just me angry because I wasn't able to quite put it all together, but I feel like there are tactics in the speedrun mode about like the, double hover jump, spin, and then just barely catch a ledge and you're almost clipping into it to get on it. And like some of that stuff is just like clumsy in a way. I don't know. Like maybe that's not that big of a deal because I do think that most of that other stuff feels good. I think the ball, like using the ball on the touchpad, I thought that didn't feel great.
That was not.
That's like the one.
That was the weakest of those.
I didn't like Springy Guy. I thought Springy Guy.
Really?
There were parts where that.
Okay.
The resistance on those things, I don't know, maybe it's just me, just felt like I was gonna break that damn thing sometimes, where it's just like, ooh, I'm pushing past this thing. Did I feel a clunk that time? Like, I mean, it's all intentional, but the springy thing felt like it was weird. That one I didn't love, but I did love the rocket ship. The
rocket ship and the spaceship and the climbing are the two really good ones.
Yeah, the climbing, like you get to that point later where you're like shaking the controller to do it, and I was like, oh, I hate this. Like that was the thing of like trying to get better speedrun times. Like that one quickly became like just like, oh god, come on.
I don't know. It sounds like,
you know what it is though. Well, like what it is like, yeah, I agree. Like it's not the greatest platformer in the world. Like I think that there's some very bog standard stuff in there design wise, and not every single one of those like level mechanics is perfect. But like, it doesn't really matter to me because they made this thing that is designed to show off the different ways that you can use that haptic stuff. And all of it, like every time a new thing came along, I was like, not mystified, but definitely just sort of like, ooh, okay. Like it created that level of excitement. And at least initially, I was always like, oh, this is cool. And I think that for what they set out to do, like the mission accomplished. And, I think it made me care about that haptic shit in a way that I never did in the lead up to the PS5, launch and all that stuff. And no matter how many times Mark Cerny described it with graphs, it never really sold me. But then I started playing that thing and I'm like, oh, they did the thing that makes me actually give a shit about this now. And I think that, like, to me, that actually makes it a serious contender here.
I think if we're talking about feel, like this game is all feel in a lot of ways, everything from just like the way the controller vibrates differently when you're walking on top of glass versus the beach, and like those sorts of things. Like they nailed all of that in a way that makes like that is the standout thing about that game is its feel.
Probably it's more notable because nothing else that I've played on the PS5 come close to using that controller as well.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
That is for sure. I feel like the loop was maybe a little one-sided if we're talking about feel of. I feel like it was given a lot to me, but I didn't necessarily enjoy what I was doing with it. You know, like it was that controller was putting in a lot of work, but the things I were doing, it was fun. I mean, I enjoy Astro's Playroom, but like nothing in it. I think there were more satisfying things on this list for me personally that I was doing for feel. I think this isn't necessarily feel, but they made such good they knew that hardware, they knew the limitations of it in ways that a lot of developers could learn from. Like only put extremely tinny sounds coming out of that little speaker, like all the taps on the glass, all the little things. They were made sure that the fidelity of those sounds were so tinny that it all worked, like little tip taps on ice and little tip taps on glass. The grating when you're sliding around on the ice, like it was very smart. I thought what they did.
Same for the haptics,
there, but
like the like
they were
in
smart
the
about
hub. The hub is like the perfect example of you running around on metal and then you run across that little hollow glass dome, and the feel of the footsteps between those two things is like it's perfect. I mean, like I've played some third-party games on the PS5, like Immortals and some stuff like that use the haptics kind of poorly in spots. Like it was really eye-opening to play like a non-Sony first-party launch games on that controller and go like, okay, the magic is not just there by default. Like it takes work to get the most out of this controller.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like
and so I think there's a I don't know that I want to cut this just yet. Like it's I'm not.
Yeah, I could see it in the top three. I am with Vinny that like two of those 4 mini games are like not amazing. But yeah,
I like the frog one. I think that was the frog suit one was actually the one that I thought felt, because you feel it like that extra chunk as it like locks in for a larger spring, and I thought that was really good.
I also it was a very smart move to give you air control on the tilt on that thing, because you can still finesse as you're in the air where you want to land, which feels really good.
The two, like I said, the ka-chunk for me always felt like it was breaking something, which again might be fun and the thing. But the other thing was I realized I had done it enough times because I did it with the kids, I did it on my own save. I was just trying to speed through it and preload the spring, and sometimes that wouldn't work. Like you'd have to then release it, and then when you land, do it again, and that just felt weird. Like if you're in the air and try to load it for the next jump to just get through the thing quickly, you'd land, and then at least that's what I remember. And that always, again, just going in and out that many times was like, oh, fucking break my controller. That doesn't want me to keep doing that.
No, you can definitely. I mean, you have to land and give it some time before it does that extra cock of just like, okay, now you're really ready to go. But you can definitely, because that is on the speed run level, that is exactly what you're doing. Is just like you are letting off and immediately pulling it again to make sure that you're ready as soon as possible.
But you don't get the extra chunk in the air.
You land. No, you do not get that in the air. You have to land, get that, and then go.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's like they have a mastery of that, which is good. I mean, we talk about Astros in a different place because I think it really is a phenomenal thing to show off what a celebration of Sony and that controller. But that is I have no problem leaving it on here. It's
I can see it in the top 3 here.
I mean, I could let's get to the rest, but like I think that's a strong case for winning the category.
It's in the neighborhood.
If we're talking about best game feel, like literally that is that game.
Right.
But anyway, but we can get to that later.
Who put Ghosts of Tsushima on this list?
Good question.
Yeah, what the hell?
I think that game feels fine. I think the duels feel good.
Sure.
But I could see the case being made of I had a few times where I took an outpost of like 30 guys without getting hit once, and that felt incredible. But the amount of times I died to bullshit arrows and shit in that game,
the archers,
or like was just out of range of an assassination that I thought I could do without alerting everyone.
I think the main thing with that game is the sword combat. Like, I think that switching between the stances, like finding the right way to approach each combat encounter, and just when it all works in concert, it's awesome. Like it does genuinely feel pretty fucking powerful to just slice those motherfuckers up. But other than that, there really isn't that much that stood out to me. Like the way that game controls, it does feel like an older Assassin's Creed game in that you can't climb everywhere. There's specified areas where you can. And I don't mind that on its own, because I think the degree to which you can climb on fucking everything in Assassin's Creed now is a little stupid. But the climbing, even within those boundaries, never felt that great. And like the grappling hook never felt that great. And we're talking grappling hooks. That one was disappointing. And
I think that game there's a latency. I think there's just an input delay, or like that game doesn't feel responsive across the board. I think for me, the only part about that game that I would say feels like good in the context of this category is letting off of triangle to fucking cut a motherfucker in a standoff, like letting him come at you and be like "fuck you," and then killing two of his other guys. You know, like that. That part I think is cool and feels good, but I think the rest of that game is just mushy and not. It's fine. I thought the stance change stuff was like a net negative.
I really like
overall, just because of how you changed stances and just how mechanical and just like,
all
right, gotta do this.
I thought it was kind of neat.
It just became this rock paper scissors of just like this isn't like fun. This is just like I got to memorize like, oh, this guy's a shield, so I need to hit this button. Like it just didn't, it didn't add that much to it. I think the only part I would look at that say like this is a game feel thing that is like a good positive thing is just letting off that button and killing.
I don't think this game hangs in the top 3, but that standoff mechanic and concept taken to its extreme is the lethal difficulty mode that they patched in like a month after launch, because it basically makes you and all the enemies die in one hit, more or less. Like sometimes you can take 2 hits depending on what kind of enemy and stuff, but if you were very confident in your ability to parry and counter like more or less perfectly, and you play it on that difficulty, you are slicing everything to ribbons in one hit and finishing all of those encounters in like 30 seconds. And it's kind of amazing. Like you literally, it's like parry, kill, you're done. Like, if you're really good at popping that stuff off, that feels good in a kind of an ongoing basis. But
yeah, I think the core combat has a pretty good feel to it. I think it feels good to reflect on your uncle in a nice onsen somewhere and just, sit there, take a nice bath, think about your uncle, think about your dad, all that fun stuff. But other than that, I don't think it belongs here overall.
This game might have
there's one more thing
best butt.
Best butt?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh,
best butt. Yeah, Jin's butt.
One more feel thing for that game that I think is maybe my favorite feel thing is just the swipe right to clean off your sword. After a kind of tough combat thing, and you're just like, he does, shakes off the blood, puts it away. That's maybe my favorite thing from the feel the game in that game. Yeah,
nice. Okay.
Also, more games need to let you just pick up materials while you're on a horse. Just always do that. Never, just do that.
Yeah, if I'm driving a car past a garbage can and there's bullets in the garbage can, let me pick up the bullets.
Let me just get them.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't want to get off the horse.
I think Ori is a strong contender for top 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Like
I think that the first act of that game is basically here's all of the abilities and movement things from the first game. So right out the gate, they start strong because that first game had great movement and abilities and stuff like that. And then they only get better from there. Like specifically, the thing I always come back to is how good the sand movement felt. It's like a mechanic where you can burrow into the sand and you move around. You can't really make any like sharp turns. It's a lot of like circular movements and stuff like that. But then there's a dash. And why that's important is you can hit enemies under the sand with it, but then you can also dash to another patch of sand that might be above you. It's a mechanic so strong, I honestly wanted a full game just based around it.
Yeah, the water dash is the same. Like both of those, you can just burst out of the surface of the sand or the water and just like fly into the air. It feels so good.
Echo.
I think that the parry the parry mechanic where you dash is probably my favorite from that, where you hit the parry on a projectile or an enemy and it sends the projectile one way and you the other. And I think it's used really well in really interesting ways. At first, I thought this is kind of getting too complicated for me already. But then when you start stringing all of those things together, it's pretty satisfying. It has you parry, dash, double jump, glide, parry. It kind of works in a way.
You can literally use like 8 different moves without touching the ground in one string of getting somewhere. It's pretty wild. My favorite move in that entire game is just the straight up right bumper dash, just the lateral dash. Like it's just so snappy. It's just like a little whip of air sound, just like it's so instantaneous.
And honestly, I was
it's
a little worried about how combat heavy they were going compared to that first game. Like they straight up kind of added a like 3-hit combo and different weapons and stuff like that. But I thought all that stuff felt pretty good. Like you can use the heavy attack as a launcher and dash around and stuff like that. I was pleasantly surprised by that.
You could do stuff like you use the hammer to like launch a guy up in the air, jump up and do a combo, and then as he hits the ground, you can then pound the ground back into it and like.
Then you can parry on that enemy to launch yourself back up and then do it again. Like it's really. I mean, and those bosses, I think, demand a lot of that from you at some points.
Sure. And like the combat in the first game was straight up not great. Like it was very much just like kind of there, and I didn't love it. So like it was nice to see that. And then like the last thing I'll say is that I love basically the last ability you get in the game is just like a cheat code. Just like just launch yourself wherever. You don't need energy for this. You don't need a projectile to bounce off of. You don't need anything. Like here's a thing that just gives you like a two screen high jump. Who cares? Just do what you want. It's very liberating.
Go 100% the map.
That's like literally what that is. It's literally like, hey, you're having a hard time making this jump to get this collectible. Like here's a thing that'll just do it for you.
Or do the speed run challenges.
Yeah, the speed. Yeah. So just
it's
like
good.
everything you do in that game just feels fantastic.
And it's shocking to me, or I haven't finished it, but it's shocking to me that they have one of the power-ups. So you have slots for augments, and one of them is like, stick to the wall without sliding up or down it. I can't even imagine playing without that. Like I've kept that thing on the whole time.
It's weird, like the way they handle some of that stuff, because there are also purchase like buyable upgrades that you just need money for a triple jump and for breathe underwater. It's like just buy these cheat codes just like to let you fucking work this game.
So I think those are the three I have on now. It's unlimited breathe underwater, the triple jump, or the third jump, right, and the stick to walls. It's like I can make do without splitting arrows. It's okay.
I think we can go ahead.
I would for sure keep that on.
I think we can go ahead and cut off Crash Bandicoot 4, especially in a world where I see Astros making top 3. I just want to shout out Crash Bandicoot because it feels like how it felt to control Crash Bandicoot 1 on the PS1. And that isn't the best feeling game at all sometimes, but the way that it felt like how I was playing it on the PS1, and they were able to map that with the jump latency, and then I was able to go into like the same combos of like, okay, I'm going to spin, I'm going to slide, high jump up, spin again, get the Wumpa fruit, and then get going. And also, the mid-air control is also still really good in those mid-level challenges where you're supposed to break all the boxes. But the game is still very unforgiving, and some of it still feels a little gummy. But I think that's just more so a little bit more in Crash Bandicoot than
I was going to say, it kind of like Crash Bandicoot 4 kind of feels like Crash, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that, for some folks, doesn't feel good at all.
That's great.
Yeah. It did not feel super great to me. A
little good on him for
sluggish.
Good on him for getting the feel right, at least.
Yeah.
I
remember when
Bandicoot.
I remember when the remastered trilogy came out. The developers were saying to folks complaining, "Oh, just get better at it."
It was not a great. It was a weird
messaging.
It was weird.
I did get used to it. I don't know if I got better at it, but I got used to it.
Yeah.
Spellbreak.
So I was about to ask about Spellbreak.
Spellbreak. So if you remember the initial trailer for that game, I was kind of amazed by it because it was this like shredding anime guitars and like a bunch of people flying around, guys skating around on ice. I'm like, wow, if they make a game that actually plays how that looks, it'll be something special. And for the most part, they did. Why the things I wanted to specifically shout out about Spellbreak are two of the classes. Specifically, there's the wind class, where the whole ability is if you shoot your wind blades at the ground, it'll boost you up into the air, and you can also kind of use that to hover. So you can kind of just like you can kind of basically fly if you spec in the right way. You can just never touch the ground, which is cool in a battle royale because it just adds like a new element to the whole thing. And then the ice class is the kind of sniper class. It's got a bow with a really long draw to it, but once you launch your arrow, it leaves a trail of ice behind, and you can full on Iceman skate on the ice, and it just feels so good.
Yeah.
It's a game that the movement, like my favorite battle royales is Apex because I really like how it moves, and that's what I'm looking for in a battle royale is the ability to like, oh shit, we're in a chaotic fight. Let's figure out how to get to high ground and like reposition and use our abilities. Spellbreak almost has too much good movement options because the people who are really fucking good at the game will smoke you instantly before you can get a shot in. I just like one of my favorite video game memories is playing X-Men Legends 2 Age of Apocalypse and having a really broken Iceman build where you just skated around as Iceman and ran over dudes and just blew people up. And it felt really good. And this is the only game that's ever come close to that weird power fantasy I had. And so it deserves a special Ben shout out for that. But ultimately, I think where it kind of falters is those are the only two classes I wanted to play because those were the only two classes with cool movement abilities. The other classes were just kind of ground-based, do whatever. And I thought like maybe if they had a little more variation in those other classes, it could be a little more interesting.
I liked the ice pathway stuff. It also felt a little bit like skiing in Tribes.
Oh, yeah.
Throw it out there.
If we had that category,
That's right.
That's
Best
right.
skiing
and Tribes. I want to talk about a Hard Space Shipbreaker again. That's still in early access. That is some of the greatest game feel going on in the space today. It is a game about dismantling derelict hulks of spaceships with lasers. It's got a lot of the things I love in video games, like lasers and tethers and grapples. So you basically get to slice up these hulks with beam lasers that kind of scissor out and kind of carve them up into panels, which I love, that of your own design. And then tether that, because they're huge and weigh a lot, but you're in space. So tether that to something so that the tether then yanks it and pulls it apart. And the weight of that and the way that all feels as you separate these giant ships is so good. All of that is so good. Going inside a ship and crawling around and carving your way back out, it feels so good in that game. And there are points where you hit that last structural point and the whole ship just kind of pops open and then just starts to, and then you kind of can use your momentum because you have a jetpack on to push the walls of the ship out a little bit as it kind of just starts to take itself apart. Or there are parts where the thing is so massive you have to tie like 6 tethers to it to get it in the garbage disposal, and it finally starts taking that turn and the momentum of it carries it off into the distance. It is a good feeling game.
I think when I tried it, it was like maybe it didn't have this, because I'm looking at what they've put in the games. They've got an update as of December where they added, maybe this isn't an addition, Open Shift, where it kind of removes a timer and like what I wanted in that game is just like, I want to chill out and cut up some ships. I don't want a timer. I don't want to have to dick around with oxygen. I just want to cut and get into that vibe.
Free play
things down.
Yeah, exactly. So it seems like they added something like that makes me
think there was
get back into it.
Yeah.
Because that was I think it kind of pushed me away from it. And when I first tried it out, it was like, this seems like really awesome, but maybe not yet. But maybe now is the time for me to go back.
It's it's still in early access. There's more to do, but I think kind of unlike Teardown, I think they nailed the feel of it so far. Now they just need more and more different stuff to do in it. They need to just get in there with the ships. I mean, gameplay wise, I also think the feel ties into what you have to do, and like, oh, this is a lot of fun. But then it's kind of dangerous because you have these things that actually weigh a lot, but since you're in 0G, don't seem like they do. But they still have their mass and their momentum moving around. Ooh, my dog just loves this game, and it's great. It's great. Hard Space Shipbreaker. would be in my top 3. I would like to leave it on for now until we get to the stabbing, but it is a boy. That's a good feeler.
I'm glad to hear that, because that's something that I've had that game installed since it came out, and I checked in on it like the week of release and was just like, and I've been meaning to get back to it. So that's cool.
Yeah, they do it right.
Yeah. Fuser. Want to talk about Fuser?
What do we want
let's
to do?
talk about Fuser.
Are we cutting hard space, or are we going to leave it?
No, let's keep it on.
Let's leave it on for now.
For now.
Fuser's, yeah, it feels right. It feels right for the most part. I think when you're dropping, this was an interesting one to put on here, because when you drop it and you hit it, the feedback is good. Feels right. Feels like you nailed it. I feel like they made that loop feel great. When you miss it, it feels terrible.
Yeah, when that's music, right? If you miss it, you miss it. It's timing is everything there. But I think where I kind of, yes, you're right. Fuser feels great. I think Fuser only feels great with a mouse and keyboard. I think the controller stuff in that game is like, I mean, they had to do it because they put it on consoles, but God, it is so not the way to play that game. You just get faster access to do the things you want to do with a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah. I haven't even tried it with a controller.
It's miserable. It's miserable.
Jeez.
My only other knock against Fuser is that I had a weirdly hard time getting it calibrated at first, despite the fact that I was playing on PC. Like it Harmonix sometimes gets calibration exactly right, and sometimes they don't. And I think that in this case, like, I was following their steps, and I was going through the calibration process, and what spit out just felt wrong. And then I just tried doing it without any calibration, and it felt right. So it seemed like they were actually creating a problem there that didn't exist. So but once I got it going, once I got it to like where it needed to be, one of the best feeling games of the year for me. Like just getting a song to line up right, getting a mix to line up right, getting those effects to just do the dumb shit that you want them to do. Like when all that stuff works in harmony, it is beautiful.
Yeah, I think my problem with it is that and this is just my problem with Fuser overall, but I think it is something that impacts the feel to an extent, is the things they ask you to do in the game part of that game suck. Like it takes away, like that. Yeah, that campaign sucks. Like some of it's necessary because it's a tutorial, and it's it is largely there to show you what is possible and all that stuff. When they're like, drop this on the beat, and you do, and it like comes in on the third word of a bar because they technically started on the 4 instead of the 1. You're like, you really fucked this up. Like this is this. If I were listening to this, like this is something that's going to get me the most points, but sounds like shit. And there's too many cases like that in the campaign and I think that stuff feels terrible. And it's terrible to feel like, oh, I'm being rewarded for playing what is like just aesthetically incorrect. And I hate that.
The campaign feels like something that came to the development cycle late because they probably spent a long time, I'm guessing, trying to figure out what that game actually was. Right. And that was probably considerably less time they spent figuring out how to make all the tools work. And it's a compromise. Like it exists as a tutorial, and I think it's fine in that regard, but it is not the draw. It is not a thing.
It's not the thing you're there to do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's nothing you'll ever want to do after you've done it once. And then after that, it's just get into the game and just fuck with the songs forever, or as long as it stays amusing for you. And it's still amusing to me. Like I've been playing it for a couple months now, and I'm still booting it up at least once or twice a week just to fuck around.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to stay in this
not for top three.
Yeah. But for dropping those discs on the platters, I don't know which one, the when you hit it, good.
Lining up your full bottom stack and then going like and swapping them all in like that. Yeah.
When you like nail a riser or whatever, and it just lines up perfectly, and the automated drop that it makes into Call Me Maybe, because it always has to be Call Me Maybe. It just feels so good. It just feels so good.
It's good.
But the points, where like it'll highlight where it thinks in the song like is the appropriate place to drop. Isn't always like the best part for me personally. Like I wish you could preview a track maybe on your earphones, but I know that'd be hard to do in the game.
Monitoring device. I need to have one headphone on,
That's right.
and then it's coming out the speakers. And then,
Release the Fusion controller. The Fusion controller.
Playing it on a controller,
just a Serato setup.
Playing it on a controller, I do have I wind up having a spider claw on it because I'm trying to trigger an effect and keep that on, and then I have to back out of a menu and then switch over to another track and then do a whole global thing that I would just wish my progress was on the PC version.
Never too late to switch and spend a lot more on DLC.
Oh.
Yeah. I think you can cheat engine your way past the campaign stuff to just unlock all the stuff too if you wanted to.
What do we got that's left? Ghost Runner?
Yeah. So Ghost Runner might be my favorite controlling game of the year. I have some issues with that game overall, like some pacing and some narrative issues that stopped me from finishing it. But god damn, did it feel good to play. It's first-person parkour combat rooms. So it's a game that very much feels like developed by people who loved Titanfall 2. The wall running in that game gets me in the same way that the wall running in Titanfall did. I think there's so many little things in that game that just work right and kind of blend into the overall picture. The fact that since it's first person melee focused, if they had made it so that your sword kills, there's a really good snap to kill a guy range in that game. I never felt like I was swinging at a guy and he got a shot off on me before I was on him. The fact that when you're in midair, you can freeze time to do your dash left or right, and you just see the bullets coming in at bullet time. And so you actually have a moment to think, what is my next move? Do I want to grapple over here? Do I want to wall run over there? That stuff is accentuated by that game's use of color. They do a really good job of kind of marking which areas are accessible to you, where you can go. That isn't necessarily a gameplay thing, but it feeds into it because I never felt like I ran myself into a corner, or not frequently. And the abilities in that game are great. There's, some of the first stuff you unlock is a deflect, which it could have felt really broken, but it feels fair because you still kind of have to aim it. There's a dash that's really good for an emergency, get me out of this situation. I'm going to dash into a dude and kill him, and then you can upgrade that so you can kind of do chain dashes. I just think that first person, as Doom Eternal showed, first-person platforming can go very wrong in a game. It is frequently, I think, one of the hardest things to get right in a video game. And I think they did it. And I think that game deserves a lot of celebration in that regard. I don't know how much other people played of it.
I got a few levels into it. I totally agree with you about the controls. I mean, the one complaint I would make is how lethal the gunshots are to you, but maybe I just need to get better at the game. I mean, you're not wrong about using the bullet time and stuff to sidestep that stuff. I think maybe I was just alarmed how unforgiving it is at first. You basically die in one hit, right?
Yeah,
take a shot.
I think that's the design, though, right? It's a puzzle
game.
No,
I get it. I get it. It was just
if there are
it was
two
kind of
dudes with a pistol in a room, you have to worry.
Yeah, it's very hard, or it's very
super hot that way.
Again, it's very unforgiving. You have zero margin for error in the game. It's not that you can't get a feel for it, but I don't know. I'm kind of like you. I really appreciated the gameplay, but I did fall off of it after a handful of levels.
It has a very okay grappling hook in it, but what this game does is one of my favorite concepts, I guess, is the blind grappling hook shot, where you can't quite see where you'd grapple onto, but you see the prompt. You hit it anyway, and then you wind up zipping up. That felt good.
I just remembered why I fell off of that game. The checkpoints are not spaced very well. Or at least,
yeah. That is one of my
number. That's what killed it for me, is that it's so unforgiving, and then you have to replay the last 3 minutes of very demanding jumps and dodges that you just went through to get back to where you died again.
Agreed. At the very least, you instantly respawn. Which is
true.
Nice, but yes, I agree with you.
I remember exactly which spot I stopped playing that game at when I died, where I teleported halfway back across the level, what felt like. And I was just like, I can't do all that again.
If you guys didn't make such a compelling case for Astros, and I feel like I'm going to say right now, my three are Hades, Ori, and Astros. And so if the fact that my top three doesn't have Ghost Runner, I think it's safe to cut.
I think you're right. I think it is probably one of the better feeling games of this year, just for what it's trying to accomplish and what it's doing. But I don't necessarily think it's top three.
By that token, should we probably cut Final Fantasy VII as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a weird caveat to be like, it gets really good if you play on hard, but yeah, like I totally got it.
Okay. All right, we've got it down to what I think are probably the finalists. Let's say we probably ought to take a quick break here.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we'll talk about Tony Hawk. We'll talk about Hades.
Yeah. Hold that thought.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Let's take a step back. We're back in 5. We'll see you in a minute. We're back with more of the best game feel. We've got it down to the 5 best feeling games. Hades, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Heartspace, Shipbreaker, Tony Hawk, Pro Skater 1 and 2, Astro's Playroom.
Let's talk Tony Hawk.
Good.
Let's talk Tony Hawk.
Let's talk Tony Hawk.
We know that.
Brad's gonna skate in. That's what he's gonna do.
Yeah.
Okay. It's they didn't fuck it up. That's the important thing. We played Tony Hawk HD. We remember what that game was like. They came in and they made a version of Tony Hawk that feels like what you remember Tony Hawk feeling like, not necessarily exactly to the letter what it felt like back then.
Right. It is not, and I think to duplicate the exact feel of 1 and 2 probably wouldn't be the right move at this point. But they brought in tricks from later games that improve your ability to string combos together in a way that helps the whole game flow. You can turn that stuff off if you want a pure kind of early Tony Hawk experience, but the ability to kind of plant on a wall and push off to, be able to propel yourself in the opposite direction and land back on a grind and kind of go back the way you came almost, is all very big. This game's franchise is the modern standard bearer for this is okay. First there was Echo the Dolphin, then there was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and then at some point there's Titanfall 2 or something, but
straight line between the two.
Exactly. And it still feels that good. And to be able to go back to it, and they polished up a ton of things, and made this a really tremendous remake of those two games. And I think the stuff they added to it, it's all taken from existing Tony Hawk games. They didn't necessarily go out of their way to invent a bunch of new stuff, and I think that is the right move ultimately. I to me, this is the best feeling game of the year. But also a lot of that feel came from the 90s and 2000s. And I think that is the knock against it, is like, hey, they made the thing you wanted them to make. And I think this is one of the all-time greatest feeling games.
Yeah. I mean,
but part of me feels weird to talk about it in a category compared to things that are straight up new.
I don't think it does. I think most of us will generally err on the side of rewarding something new and creating something new that's nice rather than, updating something old. But like I feel like they could have this, if it even felt a little bit off, it would have been bad. This game would have been bad. If the skating didn't feel like 100% right, if it was like 90% right, it would have been really hard to recommend it, because it's like, yeah, it's better than most of the other Tony Hawks later, but that have come recently, but it's still not quite what you want from the fact that they got it so right, I think is worth rewarding to some degree.
Yeah. I think it's as much about like them getting it right as it is about what they did to go about getting it right. Like in picking and choosing what they did from the various Tony Hawks. Like I think at some point someone said the physics engine is sort of roughly taken from the Underground games, and some of the other stuff, like you said, with the tricks getting kind of planted in there from later games, but that add to the flow of the whole thing. Like there is an art to that, and finding like all the different pieces and making those different pieces kind of fit together in a thing that still feels classic. And like, to me, the reason this absolutely belongs on here is that this game absolutely destroyed my confidence in what I thought my Tony Hawk skills were. Like I came back. It had been a while since I'd really played one of those games for more than 5 minutes, because boy, I played like 10 minutes of Tony Hawk 5 and said, fuck this. But
You got a flight.
But that's the thing, is that like my skills had rusted over. Like I clearly did not have the same flow that I had back in the day. I was never the best player, but I definitely used to be able to get like some real good combos and feel pretty confident in what I was doing. And as soon as I got into it, I was like, oh fuck. Oh no, I'm not the great Tony Hawk player I used to think I was. And that wasn't demoralizing so much as it just felt like a new challenge to be like, okay, I need to rededicate myself. I need to get back to this. I need to find the flow of what I used to have. And it took time, but I got there, and it never felt like I was fighting against my own memory or what the game was trying to do. It was literally just about like getting into that groove again, and I had a blast doing that. Like relearning the things and just getting back into that mind state was awesome. I never felt like the game was pushing back in a way that felt wrong. It just felt like I needed to get back there, and I did.
I think I spent a week.
Yeah.
I think I'm on the opposite side of the fence with Alex, where I remembered how good I was at Tony Hawk, and like all the muscle memory of just repeating those levels when the games originally came back, and then I could still do those combo lines, and it was still implanted in me. I'm not a fighting scientist, but I imagine it's akin to knowing like how to nail a combo on like a fighting stick. All that was still in my muscle memory with a lot of these levels, like the Chicago competition level. I got a gold doing the same exact route that I used to do as a kid, now with like the added movement abilities of like a wall plant and a revert and manuals and stuff. But like I could still apply everything that I'd done back then here, and I think nailing that it does what Crash Bandicoot 4 does, right? It replicates the feeling of the original games, but here this is a good feeling game across the board,
Yeah.
And I do think that's something to be rewarded, because which Tony Hawk was it, HD or was it 5, where they fucked up the grind completely, where if you hit triangle, it wasn't like you just
slam.
It's a slam down.
Yeah, that's 5. That was the new thing in 5. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's fucking
like
terrible.
That messed everything up.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they didn't take Underground's get off the board thing here, and that they just kept it straight to like on the board controls completely. Otherwise, I think the feel might have been different completely. But it's the ability to just tap back into the muscle memory felt amazing. And then it's funny, just like I remember, I was like, when we did that stream, that play date, and I was just tapping away at stuff, I was like, oh yeah, like I didn't even think about it, but it was just happening. The skating was flowing through me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a game. I mean, I finished that game in like a day and a half, I think. And then I spent like another 2 weeks after that just playing it. And that was before they had, I think they've since gone back and patched in the ability to kind of do the goals again. Because originally that was like done on a per skater basis. And then in this game, they made it like just a cross game. Like, just do all the goals and you'll be done with the goals. And the only thing you did on a per skater basis was collect the stat points. And they've since added that, but like even in lieu of like there were no more objectives to go really do, some challenges and stuff that they put in there, but those are they are what they are. I still just spent a ton of time just skating around and doing stuff in that game. I was like, oh, I guess I'll go get stat points for some other skaters because I'm gonna play this anyway because I love how it feels. And yeah, I mean, yes, like I said, I think like it is almost unfair because this is like they are pulling from one of the best feeling franchises ever made.
Yeah.
That's a pretty strong argument for that game, even with it being based on stuff that has existed for a while.
I think when you create what is effectively what will be the gold standard or one of the gold standards for making HD remakes going forward, that is absolutely worth rewarding for the reasons that it is that. And the reason it is that is because it just feels fucking amazing.
God, how did it never hit me
just
before that this game belongs to that Crash Trilogy, Spyro, that whole fucking Activision, like that Activision initiative to remake all of their PlayStation era hits?
Right.
It never even occurred to me that this must have come out of that shit.
Yeah, I was like, after those games did good, they were like, I guess we could try Tony Hawk again.
What else we got? All right, well, let's get the Guitar Hero 1 remake going now.
Yeah, right. Or they learned like, oh, if we actually make these games good, people will like them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Weird. Yeah, this is a hard category. This category is a real mess. Then
let's talk about Hades. Let's talk about it. We haven't talked about it yet.
You telling me that Supergiant made a game that plays good?
Wow.
Yeah, it's called Bastion.
I mean, well, I'm not going to say Bastion is the best playing game ever made, but it's fine.
Bastion plays well. Bastion
plays
is not
incredibly
bad.
well. It's incredibly solid. Like it's not flashy, but it's super solid. I don't know. I think every Supergiant game feels, even Pyre feels great to play, but I think this game
even Pyre. Don't even Pyre me. Even Pyre is fantastic in its own right at doing what it wants to do.
Yeah, but the best parts of Pyre aren't the slam ball parts.
Slam ball's good, man.
I enjoyed it. I didn't have a problem. I mean, I may not put it on best game feel, but I'm all right with it. But Hades is what we're here to talk about.
How about, okay, let's start with this. I think every weapon in that game is good, and that is they are all so different, but they're all ultimately fun to use. At least for me, I feel like everyone has like one weapon that they don't like, and it just comes down to personal preference. And I've heard different answers for that from everyone I've talked to about this game.
I think
but the fact that they made such diverse weapons and then added the attunements, what are they called? The different style of weapon for each weapon. There's like the three different and then the hidden one. And the hidden one really dramatically changes how each of those weapons plays. But like, I don't know. I think it's a testament to that game that I will just pick whichever weapon gives you the bonus 20% darkness because I like every weapon in that game.
Using it, yeah. Every weapon's my best weapon when I go the furthest with it, and then then I pick the next weapon and go further with it and be like, "This is the best weapon."
Well, clearly, it's the bow.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, no, the bow is garbage. Clearly,
the bow is garbage. Clearly, it's the spear.
Spear is definitely I think my first win was spear, and I hated spear. Right up until then, I was like, "Oh, spear is definitely."
Oh, I liked the spear the first time I got my hands on it.
I hated the
like mine's
sword,
shield,
though.
and a lot of people don't like the shield, but I like the aspect that like I remember this aspect, the one that like spins around in place, and then you can call it
the
back.
Zeus aspect.
Yeah.
Shield's real good.
I guess it was the bow. Does anybody like the bow? I think the bow was the one for me that the first time I used it. I don't know about the bow.
When you get the one that lets you fire your cast into the bow, and you can get some really fucking broken shit with that combo.
Or like the one that like the bow is all about timing that power shot, right? So if you there's an upgrade that kind of just automates that part of it or removes that part of it.
Gives you like a bigger window.
Yeah.
That would probably make me like the bow a lot more.
Yeah, it's
like my favorite part of the bow is the spread shot. Like I think and like building around that and like using booms to power that up. So like the fact that we can even within one weapon have different styles of why that weapon is fun, I think is a testament to how good it feels.
And I think just the movement, the dash is really good. I think I spent my first 20, 30 minutes with that game dashing into trouble more than I dashed out of trouble. It was like, oh, I over committed on this dash and now I am getting blown the fuck up. And so reining that in, I mean, that was like, ultimately that was fun to be like, oh, I'm getting better at not fucking up by just flipping out and going nuts all over the place. And being a little more restrained with it. Yeah.
But how they incorporate different mechanics into the different mechanics. How they vary the mechanics within even a dash, where it's like, well, you can use your dash to get out of trouble. You can use your dash to do damage to enemies if you want. How do you want to build? And all of it or at least what I experienced of it. Again, it's one of those things of like, oh, this is the way to play, right? This is what I need to be doing. I need to be, dashing to do. I want that boon. I want the dash to do damage boon every time. And it's like, no, I never want that again. I want this boon, because most of the time it was tuned or felt good in a way, similar to the cast, where it was like, oh, I want to stack damage on the cast. That's what I want it to be doing. Or, oh no, I just want the auto fire on cast. Or I just want, there's everything felt very intentional, which there was a lot of it, which I thought was going to be overwhelming for me. But I don't know, it just felt like going down the buffet line, everything next that I tried was like, oh, this is even better. I should do this. And then kind of stepping back and be like, I guess these are all viable. I also suck at this game, but it's not their fault. Which is, again, I think a well-designed, good-feeling game is when you walk away. I mean, the Souls games are lauded for this all the time. You feel like you messed up, it's your fault generally, right? And that's because not the controls, it wasn't laggy. You didn't hit the wrong, or you hit the wrong thing. You went left where you should have went right. Yeah. I think that's. I don't necessarily like run-based games all that much, but this one had the way you connect on certain hits, the power that certain weapons have feels really good. Stun locking certain enemies feels really good. It makes you want to get in there, take the enemy out, and get the hell out of there. Sometimes, like it just, I liked it a lot.
Everything was viable to the point where I never felt like I got the bad roll or something like that. It's like everything was usable, to some degree, and it always allowed for a certain freedom and playstyle choice as well. Like I really liked having the ability to have additional dashes, especially if it was something where you would do damage when you landed there. So yeah, my preference was to, get a specific weapon that did this. And long story short, everything was good. Everything was viable. Regardless of what your preference was, there was always something there for me.
I think it's cool how they were able to convey like heft and weight, especially when Zagreus on the field is so small. Like there's like a build where with some of the fists where after you do an uppercut, as soon as you land, your landing creates like an impact that damages enemies nearby. And with that, I just felt like I was shaking the screen and just causing earthquakes with each uppercut. And that felt great.
Yeah,
they definitely make you want to get good. Yeah. They definitely do a good job of I think part of it's, like, hey, here's a darkness bonus based on a different weapon than the one you used last time, or like they make failure. And this is something that's maybe not a feel thing per se, but it is like a one more run kind of thing of like, even when you lose, you don't always walk away going like, like it's definitely like, that was my fault. I can do better, and I'm going to do it right now. Like you really want to get back in there and try something else and just see how it goes and all that. Like I think that was the thing. I got to a place in Dead Cells where I just had builds that I really, really strongly preferred. Whereas I think, to what Jason was saying is like, yeah, in Hades, there's builds that I'm less comfortable with and builds and weapons that I'm like, I don't love this weapon. And even like the cast, I never got to be great at just remembering to use it all the time. So I just would spec away from it most of the time. But the times when I would go like, it seems like the only choice here is to spec into it with what I've got. Be like, oh, okay, that's totally viable. Like I don't necessarily love using it because I'm just not well trained in using it. I'm used to using the other attacks. But yeah. Every part of that game feels great, just moving around. And yeah, I'd like Jason. I love stacking an extra dash on there, as many as you can get.
Oh yeah.
Let me get in and get out, and not have to plant my feet. And take a hit.
The Hermes upgrade that like after you dash, you move fast for a
Oh
little
my God.
while.
Yep.
That was
That's good too.
that feels
Yeah.
real good. I also
I
want
wanted
to
that
shout
big
out
water splash out of it. Like, all that. Yeah.
all the bosses feel fun to fight, and they all like except for the bone dragon, they all had these like which like what I'm gonna say is like they all had these skill curves to them that they never felt impossible, but on your first few tries they feel like, oh my god, there's no way I'm going to be, especially like the third area boss where there's two enemies.
Oh my God.
I just remember being like, there's no way I'm ever going to beat this. This seems impossible. But just how the game is built, you get a little better every time. You get a little more knowledgeable. You start learning your boons. You start learning your synergies. And you just start to, and this is like a more abstract version of feeling, but like it's the feeling you get of, I'm feeling like I'm progressing against these guys. Oh, I beat the Minotaur and then I got killed by the spear guy. Okay, well next time maybe I could, I need to learn how to do this. It felt bullshit, but never impossible bullshit, which is I think a very hard thing to do in video games.
Yeah,
And
I think it's a difference between like Doom Eternal and something like Hades, where they both give you a lot, but I think Hades winds up giving you a lot of options, and then in the combat saying now pick three or 3 or 4 things. Where Doom Eternal is like, here's the 7 things you should be doing at once. We'll give them all to you at any given time, and play classical music, don't miss a note. Where I think Hades is a little more like, I don't know, freeform it, like go jazz here.
And I don't think this necessarily factors into the discussion here, but I do think it was interesting to me. I don't know how many of us played that game when it started out in early access. A lot of that foundation was there. Like, They obviously improved a lot of things, and I mean, a big part of it was adding content, but they did refine the gameplay over time. But when they first launched that thing a couple of years ago, like a lot of what it still felt good about that game at launch was already there. Like they had a really strong foundation to build off of kind of right from the get-go. And I think that probably went a long way. Like when you already start out in that place, like I think, at that point, all you can do is just refine. And they did.
Well, yeah, but I think at the same time, like the things they added to that game over the course of early access are potentially dangerous because like you've got this foundation where it feels great and you're like, here's a new weapon. Like it seems like it would have been very easy to introduce a weapon that really fucked all that up.
Right.
And I think that ultimately what they hit upon is a good balance, a good number of different weapons, all of which feel dramatically different, but still feel at the bare minimum good. But even that comes down to like a personal preference thing. Like I don't like the fists that much. It didn't do much for me. But I was very successful with them in a couple of cases too. So everything about controlling that character and moving that character around and using your abilities and growing your abilities and just you feel powerful in a way where you get to a point in that game where you're like, I broke the game with how powerful I am right now. And it's a good feeling to have, but also I don't think you ever really quite break the game. You just have really dialed in what the build is and how to use it correctly. I think that's, something about their difficulty curve and obviously it's adjustable to an extent, but I think they've made a game that is very attainable in a way too. And like, here's the roguelike you can beat. You will win at this game sooner or later. I think
there's a lot of pattern recognition built into it in a traditional sense of you can memorize the attacks of characters in a way that I think lets you learn against the machine.
Yeah, I think it's weird that they went ahead and just put like practically a Smash TV boss in the middle of that game with the bone dragon thing. Like it's like the giant snakes in Smash TV or something. But hey, Smash TV is a hell of a game too.
Also, that one Poseidon you get that lets you skate around like Iceman.
Oh,
good. Pretty good.
You just want like Iceman games. That's all you want. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Are you skiing? Is it Best Tribes? Brought to you by Motley Crue.
And I don't know, where everyone else is playing the game, but I was playing it on my Switch, and the Joy-Cons aren't the best controller at all. But given the game and how everything felt, like it turned what would be an abysmal experience with the Joy-Cons into like, I felt great with those. Like I felt like I was nailing the combos, and I never felt like they were hindering me while I was playing the game at all.
I think this is a top 3 game.
I'd agree.
I have a question. I was going to ask who would give this category to Hades.
I would give this.
I would, hands down.
Sure. Okay.
I would, but you guys made a really compelling argument for Astros as well.
I would be sad if it took it, but I would not maybe pick it. Yeah.
Okay. I was coming out of that going like every single person here is like gushing over Hades. Maybe that just wins, but maybe not.
Maybe it does, but also I think. I do think that the list is probably. Oh man, I think my 3 would be Hades, Tony Hawk, and Astros, and the winner I am less certain about right now.
I think Hades wins it for me, but I agree that I think Tony Hawk and Astro are the runners up.
I think I would probably lean Hades at this point too. I think the stuff I said about the Tony Hawk stuff coming from 3 generations ago maybe is the thing I would probably say keeps it on the list but doesn't let it win.
I think I would prefer Ori over Tony Hawk's just because Ori does the thing where like Tony Hawk where they put the stuff that you remember in there that feels good in there, but then they also add a bunch of new stuff, and so that's what would push it over for me personally.
It's true, yeah.
I agree with this side of the screen.
Literal battle lines being drawn.
I would do an Ori, a Hades, and for me personally, I would take a Shipbreaker over Tony Hawk or Astro. But that is my very personal list. But I think as a site list, I'd probably take Tony over Astro and cut Shipbreaker. Astro has a lot of game feel. I don't know if Astro is the best game feel.
I fucking love Astro's Playroom, but I'm pretty torn on it because like everything that doesn't rely on those new hardware gimmicks is just kind of there. Like so much of the base gameplay of that game is just very standard third-person platformer.
But that's
hard to that though, because like the only VR game I enjoyed other than Tetris Effect was Astro, and that was like, hey, we kind of made Super Mario 64. But in VR with a few other little gimmicks here.
Yeah, I mean you're not wrong, and like we've even kind of said like Astro is maybe the only game to use those gimmicks tastefully so far. Maybe Spider-Man a little bit, but but still, I mean we're still we're considering the totality of each one of these things, and like in that sense, I am with Vinny. Like a couple of those mini games are not amazing, and the base gameplay is sort of whatever.
I think I don't know. That still feels harsh to me because I think that when the gimmick is the point, like when the gimmick is we are trying to show you all the ways we can do wild shit with this controller, and that's the point of the game. I think that it is absolutely a success at that, and it
is the point of the game, but you do spend like the majority of your time you don't spend engaging with that stuff. You just spend running around and like spin attacking and double jumping and stuff.
But even that has like a feel to it, and I think that feel is so embedded in showing you that what the controller can do. And like, is it the greatest platformer in the world? No, but I think that as the demo software for this new tech that they are showing off for their new console, it is absolutely a success in that way, and it feels great. I think even when that game doesn't feel great, it feels great.
See, I don't know if I think it does a lot. I think most of it I got in the first 15 minutes, kind of knew what I was doing there. And I'm not saying it's bad, but it's got a lot. I mean, you can have a lot of very pretty graphics that don't strike you as well, and it wouldn't be the best looking thing, right? It's just it's doing a lot with the resistance. It's doing a lot with the force feedback. I don't necessarily without that, it would be less of a game. So it is additive for Astro's Playroom, but I think things like Ori, when the controls hit in the gameplay, I'm enjoying it more than when the squish the trigger to make the spring guy go. I think it is a neat thing, but I think it didn't keep me coming back to keep pushing that trigger.
I mean, we'll get into it. We'll get into it later in the week, but the controls are not the thing in Astro's Playroom that really got me.
I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I think at this point, if you're talking about like if you remove the force feedback stuff, you know, it's not as interesting of a game. If you remove some of those weapons or those boons or those other things from Hades' design, or you remove, you know, aspects of the Tony Hawk, you know, gameplay, like yes, it is lessened. I agree with that, but that's again, that stuff is the point of Astro's Playroom, and I think that
it's not everything that Astro does. Like when we're talking about Hades or Ori, or Tony Hawk, like that is the entirety of those games. Like everything, top to bottom, about playing those games is top notch, and like there are parts of Astro that are just not. And I think that's what he's trying to get at.
Yeah. What I'm getting at is like just because it does it. For me personally, again, this is my opinion on it. Like what it does with the force feedback isn't always great. I think they could have done it better. There are parts of it that I'm like, this feels different and novel and new, but like, okay, that's great. But you know, things like Ori, where it's like, man, this jump is tight, or like the controls on here, or this would have been, if the timing on this were a little bit off, I think this whole game would have been broken. Whereas like if the Astro's Playroom thing were a little squishier, okay, it's still gonna be Astro's Playroom.
I think this is where I'm falling off on this, is that I don't agree that I've never liked the way these Ori games play. And that is very much a personal thing. It is not that I'm saying they're bad, you shouldn't like them. It is that they have never worked for me. I don't enjoy them. I don't enjoy navigating those worlds. I don't enjoy combat.
That
like
is
You're being fun. We get it.
It just doesn't work for me. And that's personal. And I think your arguments for why it should be here and why you guys enjoyed that stuff are totally valid, and maybe it is in the top 3. But I lean toward Astro's Playroom because that shit stuck with me. Whereas when I tried to play Ori again, it's like, yes, this is much prettier, but boy, I don't want to play this.
That is kind of where I ended up on Ori as well. Of like, this is a really well-made thing that I am not having that great of a time with.
Well, you have to get, you know, like Ben said, like 30, 45 minutes into it before you start really getting a build. You know, it's Metroidvania.
I did. I spent way more than that with it. It's, yeah. But I do think it is very snappy, and I think it controls well, and I think that aspect of the game is probably the one that and just the visuals I think are the strong things about Ori. But Astro's is all feel. At the end of the day, like you know, like if we're not mentioning Astro's Playroom in a category that is about how a game feels, then I feel like we're not doing this category justice.
We mentioned
don't forget the name of the. I mean, the category is best game feel. So just because it has a lot of it in it, if everybody really enjoyed it, then that's a different thing. But just because it's doing something with the controller doesn't necessarily mean it's the best.
I would say I really enjoyed it. This was the one thing this year that I wanted to show other people and be like, "Hold this! This is crazy."
Yeah. I don't think it's criminal to not have it on here if it did it and it was like, yeah, it's all the time. It's exhausting. But if people really like it, that's a different thing. Like if it is executing on that well. Which I think it is.
I was blown away. Like if it was just that 30-second controller demo at the front of that game, like it would probably win this category. If that was the entirety of that game, like the most excited I have been about a game's feel was that moment. Like I literally fucking yelled at the TV the first time I pulled those triggers. But it's not something I would come back to ad nauseum. You know what I mean? Like it's not something that I would do over and over for months on end. You know, it's not brilliantly conceived game design. It's like an interesting use of a new piece of hardware, right? And like that loses its luster over time, where extremely well executed base game design does not. Like that's something that is timeless and holds up.
Yeah, but also I think I would say that Astro's Playroom is the coolest thing I played this year, and I think the feel of that game is a big part of it. If you want to pick it apart, I could say, maybe the controls could be slightly more responsive or something, like it's, it could, what if it did have slightly snappier combat instead of like the kind of mushy combat and movement that, is kind of inherent to a lot of 3D platform. I think those are the things I would say maybe work against it in this context, but also Astro's Playroom is probably the coolest thing I played this year. In its totality, and I think the way it feels on that force feedback, on the haptics, they make very root game mechanics feel like a fucking $1 billion in that game. They take something that is like just some bone stock ass. Yeah, you can jump and do a flood Super Mario Sunshine boost. If you want. Like I guess, yeah, sure, you can punch in the air and get a little more air if you want. Yeah, you can spin and do this, sure. Like, it's just the most standard ass 3D platformer around. It is, it's tech demo level of abilities, but because they made all that stuff feel so good, it is the coolest thing I played this year. And I think that, maybe that pushes both ways, because at the end of the day, yeah, it's a 3D platformer that could use maybe one or two more moves. And of course, it is a free demo, and as such, it has 4 worlds, and so you don't really get a ton of opportunity. I guess if that game had 8 worlds and had 4 more little vehicle things, would it be more interesting? Potentially, unless they were bad.
Technically, it's a $500 demo, if we're being completely honest here.
Sure.
You need to buy that hardware.
Yes. Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Okay.
It sounds like Hades is making our top 3.
I think so.
And then it sounds like ultimately now we need to choose 2 other games from this list, and it does not sound to me like the support for hard space.
I think Ben, you could just say Vinny's the only one who wants hard space on this list.
Vinny, your game sucks.
It's true. I am the only one who wants Hard Space Shipbreaker on this list. It would be in my top 3, but yes, as a site list, I am mature and adult enough to say, of course, it should not be on this list. I am the only one who wants it on this list. We should take that.
He's the only one brave enough to thrust the knife into his own child.
It is ridiculous that it has made it up there, and I appreciate humoring me to have it on the list for this long. Thank you very much. But yes, it is I would keep it in the top 3, but let's talk about these 4 games as a site.
So we need to choose 2 games out of Ori, Tony Hawk, and Astros.
Should we go around the horn to see what everyone's at?
The top 3 feel like the ones that have both the most support and the kind of most consistent arguments about them. Like all 3 of those, like people are saying, like there is nothing, like this is basically unassailable. And then Astros,
there's a lot of support for Astro. I don't know.
I am more than happy to assail Ori if we're going to do that. I will shit out of that game if we need to go there.
Like, I am on the Ori train, but there is a parallel, very strong Astro train.
So am I, but I mean, I'm trying to be.
Tell me more about this Astro train.
Like, if we're just getting into personal preference, like I don't care about Tony Hawk at all, but I recognize that people are making very good arguments for it and feel very strongly about it. So, like, that obviously is a factor, but like,
Well, what if we drop Tony Hawk and then Astro and Ori get in?
Like, that is my list. Like, Hades, Ori, and Astro is the list I would propose here. It's just that, again, people made very good arguments for Tony Hawk, and I can see it having a place on here. But like that, if it were purely up to me, that's the one I would cut.
What if we just went around the horn and just see where everyone's at? Just Blake, we don't have to star anything. I don't care. I just like to hear the words come out of everyone's individual mouths.
No, secret ballot. Everybody just puts a star on the dock secretly on 3.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. Sure. The informal vote. I'll start. I'll take Hades, Ori, and I don't have a horse with Tony Hawk or Astro, so I'll just say Astro only on the merits that it's doing something super novel. It is absolutely something that I would like to see more in games. I think very strong arguments are made for Tony Hawk, but just between those 2.
Jan, do you want to mark these as the votes come in?
I can do it.
Okay.
So yeah, top Hades, Ori, and Astro with strong arguments for Tony Hawk. Just Astro taking it on a novelty.
I think you're going to leave off Hades because Hades is just going to be in there, so it's really just the other 2.
Okay.
All right, clockwise, Brad.
I would go Ori and Astro.
Okay.
I'm also Ori and Astro.
Ori and Astro.
Wild. Tony Hawk and Astro.
Tony and Astro.
Oh boy.
I think I got to go Ori and Astro. I mean, I tried to cut Tony Hawk like an hour ago.
What?
Like I opened talking about Tony Hawk, trying to cut Tony Hawk. And,
end this discussion right now.
Breaking the skateboard.
And then Ben was like, "Wait, no," and I'm like, "All right." I mean,
how
if you want to make the case for it,
how does the entrance music joke go?
I think I have to bias in favor of new stuff here. I think that's my thing with it is like, I think it's, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is one of the best feeling franchises of all time. And it's awesome that they nailed that feel here. I think that's tremendous. I think it's fucking incredible. But I want to bias in favor of newer experiences. And I think that's, that to me is why I go Astro. I mean, if this is my personal list, it is Hades, Tony Hawk, Astro, because I think Ori is fine. Like, it is snappy. It controls really well. It's just not a game I'm that interested in. But I think the arguments for it are strong enough, and I think that Tony Hawk is probably the right game to cut here, because the category should almost be presented by Tony Hawk.
Okay, if we change the title to the category,
but you could present it by Tony Hawk's Underground 2. You could present it by Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, because that's where they did all this work, and that's where they established it as one of the greatest feeling games ever made. In the Pantheon, Echo the Dolphin presents best game feel.
I feel like I just got fucking red wedding. I feel like you just came up behind me and just fucking slit my motherfucking throat with this shit. This is the red skating.
Yeah, it's
the red skating. Uh-huh.
I think that is
Alex's neck.
I just think that is the right move when I think about what a list like this should say about games. I am more interested in the games that are doing things and are new than like a remake. That they got a remake done and did it right is awesome, specifically because of how fucked up it was last time, and how astray the Tony Hawk franchise got over the years. That for them to get it back on track is awesome. And I will say that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 is one of the best games of the year. But when it comes to best game feel, we've got these other strong games here. I think there are things in those other games I'd rather reward.
All right.
Okay.
Anyone
Oh
object
my
to
God.
cutting Tony Hawk?
Who was 426 all along?
I feel like you just threw
yet.
my eyes, man. Fuck.
I mean, I even though it sounds like 90%, maybe 100% of Tony Hawk's controls are lifted from other Tony Hawks, I mean, there is something to be said for threading the needle and bringing back the stuff you should bring back and not bringing the
Okay,
stuff
I mean, if
back.
you want to cut Ori, then we can put it back on. I mean,
I'm saying like there are a lot of good arguments for Tony Hawk, but I am fully with you that like, and that goes for like every category in these awards, that stuff that is new kind of always has an advantage over stuff that's not. So,
yeah, I think that's just where I stand with it. And, I think Hades, if Hades hadn't done right by all its additions over the years, I think the argument of like, hey, this game felt great 2 years ago would work against it. But I think just because they developed it openly doesn't necessarily disqualify it here, because the things that they added to that game over time made it feel better and better and better. And that's why I think it wins the category.
I think
I'm okay with Hades winning the category.
Yeah, that seems like that's pretty strong based on the Hades conversation.
Yeah.
I believe in
Yeah,
it.
that makes sense.
Just like I believed in Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 being one of the best.
Wow.
That's my last thing. I'm done. I've said my piece. I'm done. I got nothing else.
All right.
Wow.
Hades wins the best game feel. It's the best feeling game. Ori and the Will of the
Sponsored by
Wisps
Tony Hawk.
and Astro's Playroom also feel pretty good. Okay. Are we okay to move into the next category?
Should we take a
I'm
short
ready
break?
to go. I'm okay to go.
Yeah.
No break.
Well, let's get into it a little bit, and then we'll take a break.
Yeah, let's get into this
Okay.
and let's get into this. And
Are you okay, Ben? Did you break?
Yeah. No, we're good.
Oh, we can take two.
We can take two, yeah,
no,
if you need it.
no, let's get into it. Let's get into it.
Okay. Party of the year. crew of the year,
Posse of the year.
Squad.
squad. No, we agreed not to use the word
Ensemble.
squad of the yes.
Homies of the year.
This
Yes,
is
band.
this is a group of
Favorite
people
band.
in a game that, you know, it comes down to personal preference. Do you want to you could see yourself chilling with them, you appreciate their usefulness in the game. It's kind of broad, but you know it when you see it.
Set of characters we'd most like to party with.
Well, not just
Maybe.
that.
Let's see.
Not exclusively, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I will read what is on this list. The party members from Yakuza Like a Dragon, the villagers from Bug Snacks, the Bug Snacks from Bug Snacks, the Sentinels from 13 Sentinels, the audience from Fuser, the employees of Resident Services and Animal Crossing New Horizons, the village people in Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
We'll explain
Those
later.
people very hot right now.
Yeah, Viking.
This very morning, in fact. Jin's allies from Ghost of Tsushima. The Pantheon of Gods from Hades. The Citizens of Hades from Hades. The Any Cafe? Is that how you say
Any
that?
of the cafe, yeah, there are little cafes in Paper Mario.
Oh,
You go,
any Cafe from Paper Mario.
any cafe.
Quick Serve Delicious 3. Cleaver and Whisk. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, the Skateboarders, the Boat Buddies from Spiritfarer, the party members from Kentucky Route Zero, Avalanche from Final Fantasy VII Remake, the party members from Final Fantasy VII Remake, White Ocean Big Jacket, I guess
The
everybody.
cast. Yeah, the main cast.
That's it.
Call of Duty,
Well,
Black Ops, Cold War, the Reagan administration.
Yeah, let me just I was just saying, just let me write.
Can we cut that now?
Called Ronnie.
Nobody specified who we were
Captain
talking
Ronnie
about.
Reagan.
Black Ops Cold War. I just had to assume. Some big Dick Cheney fans on this staff. Let's see. Streets of Rage 4. I guess everybody? Is that all the playable characters?
It's pretty much
believe
everybody.
so.
Well, there's some more playable characters, but
Yeah.
nothing I
Marvel's
want-
Avengers, the Avengers, Captain Tsubasa, the soccer team, Fast and Furious Crossroads, the Fast People.
The family. Me familia.
I like the idea of that's their new canonical name, the Fast People.
Fast. I didn't know what else to write. Somebody just wrote Fast and Furious. I was like, I don't know.
Your Team Fast, not so much Team Furious. Astro's Playroom, the Astrobots. Either squad from Last of Us Part 2, question mark? And Phasmophobia, the Ghost.
Yep.
I don't want to hang out with those ghosts. I want to get out of those fucking places where those people are.
Oh man, those
Some of them
ghosts
weren't
are-
that bad.
Those ghosts can get up to trouble. Let me tell you.
I know.
Ugh.
It's just
wanna be hanging
party.
out.
It's just party of the year. If it's the scariest party, makes it
Okay, what is the actual thing for Call of Duty Black Ops? Because I know we're not talking about the Reagan administration here.
So, like that game returns to a safe house between every mission, and it's like basically you're running a CIA op, and you're some like faceless, nameless. You create a character who is always named Bell, and so that is like we're cutting this, by the way.
Okay.
But like, eventually, like that is a crew of like Park, who's like the SAS agent, and she's there, and you can talk to her between missions and all that stuff, and Adler, the CIA dude with a scar, and then eventually fucking Frank Woods and Mason from classic Black Ops show up, and I just mostly just want to say they are the fucking Beavis and Butthead of video games. In this, they like for characters that were like meant to be like a focal point, and you maybe at one point saw as like maybe a little bit badass. Like in this game, they're just like sitting in the back of an open van, just practically going, they blew shit up. It's just the dumbest. They have made Frank Woods into the dumbest character. He's the Bam Margera of the Call of Duty universe. Like it's just embarrassing the way they write that character now for what that character has been through in the story. And then it turns out that the whole I guess I won't spoil the story of Black Ops Cold War and the nature of your character, but none of them are your friends, and we should cut it.
All right.
Okay.
Well, that settles that one.
But also
On.
Gorbachev's in that game. I don't, if you're into that side of things, like if you're not so into the Reagan side of things, Gorbachev is in there.
Love
Pinkos.
Perestroika.
Someone just added a thing.
I added something.
The gotcha guys and gals from Genshin Impact.
Is Pie Man
I don't like
part of
people
that?
I got to pay to hang out with me.
Yeah.
For that reason, we can cut it. But through some miraculous stroke of luck, I managed to get like some high 4 or 5-star characters that I liked running around with. I love Fischl with her creepy lightning raven, Diluc with his fire sword. I still haven't gone Venti, the loot god that shoots wind dragons.
Mm-hmm.
But for Jeff's point, I don't want to pay to hang out with my homies. I don't want to pay to party up. But
Paimon's good.
Paimon is good. Paimon is great.
awful.
Paimon!
I will shoot
Paimon of
with
the
a
year is
gun.
Paimon.
Yeah.
All right.
Paimon presents Party of the Year.
Paimon cannot be a party unto herself, sadly.
Well,
True.
you as the player in Paimon, then.
Paimon is a real party of one.
Yeah.
I would like to talk about
We can cut it.
bug snacks for a moment. For 80% of the game, I was like, I love these bug snacks. By which now I'm talking about the creatures of the island. I love these bug snacks. They run around. They're cute. They say their own name. It's fun as hell. I love these guys. I want to hang out with them. You have a little side quest where you're kind of filling up a guy's farm.
Possible
with random-
spoilers coming up.
Oh
Just
yeah,
wanna warn
this
people.
category is going to
Okay.
be full of spoilers.
Yeah.
You have a little side quest where you can populate a guy's farm with any spare bug snacks you can, and so I became really picky about which ones I was choosing to give him because I wanted all my favorites in there. And then the end of that game happens, and you realize the bug snacks aren't what they seem to be. Let's say, I don't know how specifically spoilery we want to get, but the bug snacks are not your friends.
You don't want to hang out with bug snacks. You want to eat a
I
bug
do
snack.
not want to hang out with the bug snacks.
Do you not want to eat the bug snacks either? Does that turn
No.
out
I
to
do
be
not
bad?
want to eat the bug snacks,
You don't
Jeff.
want to eat the bug snack. No, you need to get off the island. You need to get off the island.
You need to get the fuck away from any bug
You need to
snack.
get. You need to get away. It's gone bad.
That being
It
said,
always
I
was
do
Now
that.
that
really
we're cutting the bug snacks, but what about the villagers?
Yeah. I do really like that cast of characters. You know, they're may be a little one-dimensional when you first meet them, and some of them I don't really think have like great growth or narrative throughout. Like like Bifika stands out as being just kind of like I don't really care for her at all.
I
But
didn't
some
finish
of
that game,
them,
but she's a real shit. When you first meet her,
Yeah.
she's just like kind of really an asshole to that
And
other dude.
her whole quest line is like go spy on these people at midnight and see what shit they get up to and come tell me about it. But like some of these characters, like God, I'm gonna forget all of their names, but like who's the buff guy, Vinny? Sporto. Let's just call him Sporto.
Sporto. I'll
Sporto
look
and
him up.
Chandli, I think.
Yeah,
have a really
they're
great
yeah.
you know, I don't know, Vinny. Like you and Alex, I think you also played a fair bit.
I do
No, I
like the
haven't
characters.
Okay.
I like Snorpy. Snorpy is I like Snorpy. I like Floofty, who's the one that the woman who wants to experiment, or I think actually non-gender wants to experiment on everybody. It's just is out there doing stuff. I like the Eggabells, kind of the whole thing. Like yeah, you're right. They have more depth. They're I would leave them on this list. I think the villagers from Bug Snacks.
Leave the villagers
they're-
and cut the bug snacks? Is that
Oh
what?
yeah,
bug
cut the Bug
snacks.
Snacks.
Get away from the bug snacks.
They are dorky in
Yes.
a severe way. They're like corny, but there's a charm, and there's like a.
Sweetness to it.
It's one of those things that's it's hard to explain. It's like corny, but there's a everybody's got a little bit of dark, like a pad, like a little bit of like a dark history.
You guys finish it. I didn't, so you know where this stuff goes. But like in the little kind of dossier in your book, where it's got all the villagers and it lists like, oh, they love chocolate and they're friends with so and so, and like half of them also just have like a hates column. It's like, oh, Biffica hates this guy and this guy. It's like,
and you learn about it, and you're like, yeah, I get it.
Okay,
I get why you hate.
Yeah,
this character.
maybe if they make good on that stuff, that's a little better. But like that stuff came off as like, man, this is like kind of contentious in a way I wasn't looking for.
They don't necessarily make good on that part. It's more of the stuff that comes out just by playing the missions of like, oh, this person's marriage is in trouble. Like, oh, what? Yeah, like no, it's we don't live together anymore. Like, oh, okay.
Is kind of about a relationship, a complicated relationship between Agabel and the one who's missing, Elizabeth, and like you learn almost all of their relationship from like tapes you're finding around the island, like old film reels that you're watching, and it's like an honest, like it's not just like there was a big misunderstanding between them and that's why they're fighting. It's like, no, there's this complicated feeling of like I feel like I am in a parasite. Like the game is in multiple ways about being in parasitic relationships and like not wanting to have to rely on somebody else, but then how much of that is like you giving up yourself and how much of it is you be allowing yourself to be taken care of. And I feel like that it's a theme you don't really see in other video games. This is maybe more, it gets maybe more into like best story, which isn't a real category. I don't know why I said that. I don't know. There's a part where you are having a big party with all of the villagers once you kind of get them all back in, and I really liked that part.
It is arguably the best part of the game. The villagers and their complicated stories.
That's wild for me, considering how they promoted that game. Being all about catching bug snacks and about these weird food animals and stuff.
But
and
I think it's intentional. I don't think it is like, oh, the bug snacks part wound up sucking. I think they very clearly built this progression into the game with these character developments and the side missions and stuff. And the bug snacks wind up being this vehicle to have everybody realize this thing on this island. That being said, I did not enjoy catching the bug snacks all that much towards the end, but that's what I mean.
Like the core gameplay loop and all that stuff has kind of turned a lot of people off.
Yeah, I think it stays on here.
Stays, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think we can get rid of. There's a couple on here. One is the Fuser audience, which I mostly put in here as a joke because, goddamn it, I miss going to shows. And Fuser was like one of those games where it's just like. I mean, look, we're not doing that again anytime soon. And if I do, boy, I'm going to try and keep my distance from people. But I remember the days, the heady, distant days when you could just be in a seething mass of people, ideally not listening to EDM, but listening to music in front of people and having a good time. And I fucking miss that. It's not the DJs. The DJ, like a couple of the DJs seem cool. The rest of them are like fucking dickheads. But, I miss
seem like DJs. They seem like fucking DJs. Yeah. I don't want to hang out with DJs. Come on.
Yeah.
They're too excited. Everybody's too excited. Take it down. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. The other one I think we can get rid of is the Animal Crossing resident services stuff because Tom Nook, a lovely man. I'd love, but like, here's the thing. They're barely in the game. They barely do anything. They're around when the events happen, but like mostly they just stand there with Spark being like, hey, here's a hat.
Dude, I dropped in on Timmy and Tommy every single day for like 2 months. What are you talking about?
But they're not resident services. They run the show.
Well, if we brought it out to island staff, we could also throw in those dodos.
Yeah,
I
and
love
also
those
like
dodos.
Blathers. Yeah, like Blathers is in that. Like you could probably even throw in like the people who come in and do like the special events, like the fishing tourneys and the bug tourneys. I definitely want to hang out with that weird dinosaur that loves bugs. He seems cool.
Yeah, I cannot
believe cool, but fuck CJ.
Oh, CJ's a dickhead.
The horned lizard.
CJ's the
sea sports beaver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think I had more interest. I had much more interest in hanging out with my villagers than I did the main characters of Animal Crossing, and that's just because I'm very familiar with them. I have no dislike of them. Blathers, great, love Blathers, love all those people. But I think the villagers for me were much more the draw for this because I just liked because you can actually do stuff with them. You know, everyone else is just kind of there to receive whatever goods you are going to hand to them, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, you're gonna go talk to this dodo, and he's gonna present you with a billion different menus.
Yeah,
Like, come on, dude!
Open
Stop
the
being a
damn
dick and
gate!
Just open the gate.
Open the
Ultimately-
gate. You don't need the forms.
I want to party with Kurlos, man. I want to party with my beautiful sheep buddy, who I love hanging out with him. He's great, you know. I want to go hang out with Tangy. She's a total weirdo, and I fucking love it. And it's just, you know, they're much more interesting to me, I think, than the main characters in that game.
I'll spend time in Rodney's house. Rodney doesn't have a bed. He only has a pool table, which I assume is what he sleeps on. But I'll still party at his house.
Or under.
Yeah, the only person I want to hang out with, only person I want to hang out with in Animal Crossing is the pilot, because I feel like that pilot will talk some shit about everybody else. On that, I like go to a bar and then have a drink with that pilot that flies you everywhere, and just have him just talk so much shit about what goes on on that island.
So there's Gulliver, but did you ever meet Gullivar, the pirate version of the pilot that they eventually added to me? I think you'd like him.
He's just Gulliver, but he works at a pirate theme restaurant. Like, it's not, he's not really a different character at all.
There's a reason everybody keeps throwing him off the ship, man. That guy.
He's just Steve Zahn's character from Dodgeball.
All right, fine. I really enjoy the writing on Timmy and Tommy, but that's fine.
They're lovely people.
I like Timmy and Tommy.
I think we can also get rid of.
Just like the way they repeat each other.
Yeah.
We can get rid of Jin's allies. They're mostly huge bummers. The only one I wanted to shout out was Keiji, the sake guy.
Some of them at least have good reasons.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
no, I get it.
Yeah. Like, everything that's happening in that game is totally fucked up. And, like, people around them are dying all the time. Like, Lady Masako, my favorite, who is genuinely my favorite character in that game.
Her most of all.
Everything that happens to her is fucking awful, and I totally understand why she is the way she is. But, like, I don't want to hang out with Lady Masako. I want to help her.
I've got a lot of stuff going on right now in my life.
Fair.
I want to get her to a place where she feels better. She can kind of remake her life and feel like she can be okay again. But after that, I'm space because
Ben, was your entire family just slaughtered by invading Mongols? No.
Well, I mean, kind of, actually, Jin's family was.
Yes.
Yeah,
Jin
she's like, but
kind of a huge bummer.
Every time I talk to her, and granted, I'm not done with her stuff yet. She's like, is basically she ends every mission with, I gotta go bury somebody else. I gotta go dig another. I dug the graves. I haven't put the rocks on the graves yet. So I'll see. Go do some other stuff and come back. I got the rest of my family to go put in the ground. I'll be right back.
They did an interesting thing with mission design in that game where, like, I stumbled. So what is it? Each character has like 8 steps or something. I forget what the number is, but like
It's a different number, right?
my kind of like delineated next quest for her. Like, oh, here's the icon way down the map that I'm supposed to go do. I ran into her elsewhere with one of her other quest steps, like in context in the game. It was fucking cool. Like, I rode over a hill. I was like going somewhere to do something else, and there she is, like fighting like half a dozen dudes. Even though that was not the quest I was supposed to be doing next for her. But when I ran up and got in the mix and like killed the dudes, she came up to me and like it started whatever quest was set in that spot. So you can actually do that stuff out of order, and it feels very natural to just like stumble on it, even though it's not like kind of the next quest in her storyline. It's like an interesting little way to kind of like break the game sequence in a way that I thought was super cool. But
Keiji,
KG, I think.
Keiji, though, that dude is a solid. He is a scoundrel of the best kind. He's willing to go talk to the Mongol guards and get you in the little Trojan horse. He brings you out of prison. That dude. I mean, look, that dude's a solid one.
And you'll appreciate this one. He's basically Quark from DS9. Like, he's up to no good. He's up to no good for you.
He's playing both sides, but he's playing your side a little more.
Yeah. He'd rather
hang out with that guy in the very beginning that goes to challenge the champion and then just gets lit on fire and just be like, that guy needs a little more airtime, I think. That poor guy.
Dude's a solid hang.
Spits his drink on him and then lights him on fire.
That guy needs more respect, okay? That guy needs to be... Somebody needs to get a drink with that guy.
I didn't find myself drawn to any of the stories of any of these people. Like those quests ended up being. I feel like I was like begrudgingly doing those after all the other stuff was done. I was like, all right, I guess I'll go do the next step in this thing because I just none of those characters really stuck out to me in a meaningful way. So I don't think I would put it on this list.
I wouldn't either. I mean, I think Lady Masako and was the archery teacher, what was his name, Ishikawa? I think.
Yeah.
I thought
I also
those
like
were okay.
Norio, warrior monk.
I wish the warrior monk missions were better because I think he's an interesting character. It's just that a lot of what you end up doing with him is not that much fun. I think I had the opposite problem with Jeff, where I was more interested in their story arcs than I was the main story arc. But also, like, there was a point where I did kind of feel like I was running out of steam with even that stuff. So,
I mean, it doesn't help that the mission design on most of that stuff is like incredibly straightforward. It's just like,
Yeah,
hey,
that's a big part of it. It was like what
go
you're
here and
doing
fight
in
some guys.
combat.
Yeah, that stuff gets tedious.
So
Swipe
run
up
over
for
here
wind.
and fight some more. Yeah.
Speaking of bummers, Marvel's Avengers. Those guys are just like fucking bickering back and forth all the time and trying to show each other up. And
They
I don't want to be part of that. They suck. Yeah.
That game is carried a lot by Kamala.
Yeah,
Yep.
of course.
Oh.
I would love to hang out with Kamala for sure. We could, share fan fiction back and forth, and bond over that. But at the end of the day, like, I don't want any part of Iron Man.
Yeah,
fuck those
like that's
guys.
probably some of like the worst representation. I mean, Tony Stark as a character is kind of a douche. Well, he is a douche.
He is a
like
douche.
this portrayal of Tony, especially, it's like, shut up.
Yeah, he sucks. So I put it on here just so we could take it off.
okay.
Their Bruce
I love that
Banner's
we-
also okay.
Yeah, it's all right.
I love that we are eliminating the literal Avengers before we are eliminating the fucking murder ghosts from Phasmophobia.
All right, let's talk about it. So, are you telling me if those ghosts were like, instead of like, I want to murder you, they're like, let's hang out and cause some shit, and you'd be like, there are 4 idiots about to come into this house. What do you want to do? You want to move? I'd be like, oh, this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be some fun.
Who is the bigger idiot? The person going in there to do their job and ultimately get murdered by the ghosts, or the person who would trust one of those fucking ghosts to not murder them right after they're done murdering all the other people?
They don't want to murder me. We're gonna go terrorize some of the people with their flashlights and their EKG meters. We're gonna slam doors. We're gonna blink on and off for a while. We're gonna put some Ouija boards.
So they're the Maitlands from Beetlejuice. What?
I mean,
They're
they
not.
will murder somebody.
They're
No.
not. They just
They will
string
actually.
you up in a weird flesh prison.
No,
It's
no,
not
they're
even a
cool
flesh
with me.
prison.
No, they're gonna have me run around and be like, listen, we can't actually touch stuff. So if you could just put some extra Ouija boards down, or like put some glasses of water out on the table and hide in a closet. Just hide in a closet and watch this. It's gonna be hilarious.
We need to get rid of these ghosts, and we need to kick Vinny out of the call because he's working with them.
It's what you guys are cool with this, right? Yeah, no, they say they're cool with it. My basement ghosts are way fine with this. They are pushing for God. They listen, you guys. You have to keep the ghosts on this. You do this for me.
Hey, how'd those ghosts get in your basement?
They were here when we got the house. It's an old house. It's 100 years old. Do you ask? Listen, you look at the electrical. You look at the you do the things, and then there are ghosts in the basement.
You get a pest report, not a ghost report.
Yeah, you check the is there fumes in the basement? That's fine. All right, fine. If you guys are so scared of these ghosts,
Hey,
I thought
I ain't afraid
busted
of
makes you
ghosts.
feel good.
May Richard
Take 'em
Martin
off.
finally rest in peace.
Away from me.
I think it's a good time. Imagine those ghosts. Imagine those ghosts on the island in Animal Crossing. What the fun times to be had.
How much character do
Haunting
these
those
ghosts have? Do they have
Zero.
names and faces and like stuff?
What?
Okay.
You have to call their name to talk to them. What are you talking about?
They have a
Deep-
name that is randomly generated.
and they have dislikes and likes. And if they are banshees, if they are with a water spirits, if they are. This one it gets
Will-o-wisps.
mad. gets mad if if there are multiple people there. Their personalities are extremely fleshed out, and they fit into one of 7 categories.
But
Don't even have
Vinny, it's
flesh.
only one ghost at a time, and I think
That's
that
true.
disqualifies it from this category.
Technicality.
I don't know. I'm gonna keep that.
We're not having a monster mash.
No, we can cut the ghosts, but now I know a lot more about everybody on this call.
Yeah, that we're anti-ghosts. I will firmly go on record as being anti-ghost.
I'm ghost neutral.
Yeah, I'm not all ghosts.
If
Casper's
you're
a
ghost
fun
neutral,
ghost,
you're
right?
ghost positive.
This next one may be controversial given my previous statements on this franchise, but I really do want to hang out with the family from It's Fast and Furious. I don't want to hang out with them in that video game.
No, and the characters that are given the most screen time in this video game are definitely not the ones you want to hang out with. This game sucks, and the characters in it suck, even though they are characters you might like from those movies.
Who did they get for this? Who slummed it enough that
They got Sonico Williams from
They
The
got
Walking
Vin
Dead.
Diesel.
Vin Diesel in this? Like,
Yes,
the-
I mean, yeah.
Really him?
He's not
Wow.
the necessarily the lead, but yeah, they got
Huh. Okay.
other characters that end up being the center of a lot of the story.
Okay.
Hey, look,
Awful fucking video game.
yeah, hey, look, this game sucks shit. That game sucks shit.
If
Hey,
Bow Wow was
we'll
in
talk
it,
about that
would
a
it be
little
different?
more.
Bow Wow was in it, it would be different.
Okay.
Yes.
Especially if he had his Hulk car.
Yeah, if he had his Hulk car, then that would be the best Avengers game also by default.
I think the cosplaying Astrobots are an awful lot of fun. I don't know how other people feel about it.
And they're fun.
I think they're fantastic. Like I want to hang out with those dudes and just like walk video games with them.
It
You know,
made me-
I'm with you.
It made me wish
Yeah.
there was like an unlockable legend after you finish that game that was like, all right, here's what everybody was, because there were like 4 or 5 of those that I couldn't quite guess. Like, it was fun. That was fun. I mean, there are a lot of reasons that I like Astro's Playroom, which again we will get into later this week. But that was one of the big ones of like, oh, I remember that. Look at that little robot dressed up like.
exactly. They've got tons of
It's like-
personality.
Like a Jill Valentine or whatever.
Yeah.
And even just the, you can punch them in the central area and then they will snap to attention and follow you around.
That's right.
And-
They loved it.
Yeah, but here,
yeah,
okay.
little crowd behavior in the hub was pretty fun too. There's a trophy.
Here's the question. Here's one question I will pose, and I'm not saying we should get rid of this, but who would you rather hang out from with that game, the Astrobots or the PlayStation hardware you unlock? I want to go hang out with that PS4 is what I'm saying. I
Well,
wanna go hang
okay.
out
Are the
Do it all.
Astrobots as tiny as they look, and is the PlayStation hardware as big as it looks? Because
yes and yes.
if that is actually like a 3-story tall PS3, then the hardware by a mile.
I don't. No, that's
Yeah.
not my thing. I'd be. No, I'm good.
I would live in a giant PlayStation 3.
I like the idea of jumping on that open button on the PlayStation. That seems like a lot of fun. Just you jump on that thing and fling when you fling the little bots off. Like that's a lot of fun.
This
that
that game has raised another question for me. Is there an Astrobot? Like, is there one?
It's the one with the cape.
The
Is there
chosen
one
one.
Astrobot who is the Astrobot and everybody else is a bit player, or are you just interchangeably playing a bunch of different Astrobots?
Well, didn't they name? I mean, this didn't come with an instruction manual because it's just like a digital
true.
pre-installed thing. But didn't they name the lead Astrobot in the VR game? Didn't they name it Asobi after the studio?
Oh, maybe.
Or are the Astrobots like rabbits?
I think the Astrobots are a lot like rabbits.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Maybe a little too much like rabbits.
Got him.
Oh,
Oh, they're cute. They can hang out for a bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, don't talk.
Hey, sometimes the most awkward thing at
Oh,
a party
yeah.
is people that talk too much.
That's
Right.
great.
True.
They let their,
I
they, let
talk.
their, they let their cosplay do the talking for them.
Oh, okay.
I think we can go ahead and cut the soccer team from Captain Tsubasa, mostly because I played that game completely wrong, and apparently it's not just a soccer game; it's a story soccer game, and I skipped over all of the story.
That's not if you play that game right.
You know, it's cool anime soccer for what it's worth. I don't remember much of the teammates, unfortunately. I just remember the guy that when he dove for the ball, he swept the leg, and he wound up tackling everyone else. There's another big burly dude that was good at defense, and another person who summoned a spirit tiger or panther, I think, when their meter filled up. Good soccer, but I just don't remember everyone's names, and that can be very awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
Hey, now that we've gotten rid of like half this list,
Let's take a break. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back and still in search of the party of the year. What's next?
What's next? What's next? Let's talk about Cleaver and Whisk from Cook Serve Delicious. Now they are just two fantastic androids that pull you out of the wreckage, literally, of a post-apocalyptic food war, the aftermath after an explosion and then the tower. Everybody's dead. It's the future. They're androids. No, this is all true.
Are you talking about 13 Sentinels right now, Vinny? Or
the Cook Serve they put is something else.
Huh. They put you in their bullet-ridden truck and decide we've got the cook, we've got chef. Why not make this truck a food truck? And then they're supportive. They'll protect you from marauders. They are they'll send your orders out. They'll box it up. You click a button or hit a key, and they'll just box up those orders and put them out the food truck. You don't even have to serve them sometimes. That's good. I mean, unless it's like a waffle cone or something, you got to dip it. But that's a special circumstance.
So like you cook, they serve. It's delicious.
It's delicious.
All right. Okay.
They're supportive. Sometimes you get that bronze on this level, and they're like, "You could do better, chef. I know you could do better." But sometimes they're like, "Hey, that's the best I've ever seen. You are great." They're fun. I mean, Cook Serve Delicious 3's story and the canonical running of Cook Serve Delicious and its narrative is fun, and they're fun characters, voiced well. So.
That's wild. That series really went places, apparently.
Yeah, they are fully voiced.
Trying to come up with a to serve man joke of some kind, and just couldn't put it together.
I don't know if they'll make the top party crew, but they're fun.
Saying I should cleave it from this list and whisk it away?
Oh no, I'm not saying that. Somebody else can say that, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think it will make it into the 3.
I think they're the first 2 that have come up so far in this list that has been like, oh, okay, I could see it. Like we've mostly been just hacking away. I can actually see an argument for them.
I'm not saying to cut it. I'm saying that's my case for it, but I'm not sure the support they will get. Cleaver and Whisk, they're too busy running a food truck. They care about awards.
They sound good.
They are good.
They are.
I want to talk about. Oh no, Jason, go.
Oh, sorry. All right. Support characters in Streets of Rage 4. They support me in my endeavor to rid the city streets of crime and scum. There's Axel, there's Blaze, there's Cherry, there's Floyd, there's even Adam who comes in later.
Even Adam?
What I want to do with these folks is hang out at that bar that we trashed. Actually, that is now our bar because we trashed it. We own it now officially, and just hang out in the back.
That's how the law works. Yeah,
and throw tires at each other and do grand uppers, back and forth. Play tire grand upper juggle ball. They're not going to make this list. There's no support. But I want to hang out with these guys.
I like Streets of Rage 4 a lot, and I do think the characters are fairly memorable. I mean, I don't know that they would necessarily make my top 3, but I think Streets of Rage 4 was a way better game than I had any expectation of it being, and I like the characters.
Thank you. I
Cherry
feel
is
good
cool.
Cherry
is very cool.
Yeah, she loves her dad. Her dad loves her.
There's a group on this list that I'd more rather hang out at a bar with and throw tires at people with.
You're talking about the Kentucky Route Zero people, right?
That's right. I'm talking
very
about the
fair.
Yakuza party.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I was okay.
If we're talking about hanging out at a bar, ooh boy,
Yeah.
that is some primo bar hanging out.
Oh, yeah.
I think we can get into it more, but I think Yakuza needs a fat asterisk right next to it. For
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah. I will have some criticisms to lob at certain members of that party, but I agree that they are absolutely running here.
Okay, so we're on the topic of bars, and there's 2 sets of groups from the same game that all hang out at a bar.
Oh, you're right.
I think we should keep one of them and put an asterisk, and then cut one of them. And I think we should cut the party members from Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh, Jan, I am like, I agree with you but Tifa.
I know.
Dude.
Tifa.
Huge slam on Tifa out of nowhere.
Tifa is amazing. You know, Barrett's got a kid, as we know, one of the best dads of the year. So he'll eventually he'll eventually need to go back home. Aerith is too
Marley.
Aerith is too aloof.
Shut up about the life force.
The thing that kills the party members is if you choose to go up the stairs in Final Fantasy VII, Barrett is just complaining the whole time. Aerith, too aloof to hang out with on a consistent basis. But let me tell you about the Avalanche crew. The original game of Final Fantasy VII, these guys are just throwaway characters, right? Jesse, Biggs, Wedge, whatever. But
They've got like half a dozen lines each or something now.
Exactly. Final Fantasy VII Remake, spoilers here, I don't think I cared more about certain these characters than I cared about Jesse. I was so upset when Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge were hurt. Some of them made it out of the wreckage at the very final encounter, but losing Jesse affected me on some weird, odd level that I can't fully articulate just yet. But
I agree with you.
He liked her
on the Jesse front, but Biggs and Wedge kind of don't do shit in that game.
No. So Wedge and Biggs are just, and Jesse are just people. They don't have a gun arm. They can't do amazing kung fu. They can't summon stuff with spells. They're just regular people that are down for the cause. So that they know, that they are down for you. Even though Wedge is just like a dude, just like, hey, pizza, Midgar special, Jesse. He is still down for you. So is Biggs. Biggs is like the cool guy. It's like, all right, okay, you can hang around.
Biggs sucks. I'll say it. Biggs fucking sucks. He's like turns into the.
He's the Charlie Sheen one?
Yeah.
Yes. Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
And the other one is the guy voiced by Badger.
Sure.
He looks like exactly like Charlie Sheen.
He looks exactly like Charlie Sheen. Young Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
Man.
Like Hot
Yeah,
Shots.
I don't fundamentally agree with you. I think Tifa is better than that entire crew, but I like your argument here. It's tough, but I think
How much of that is the game, and how much of that is just like how much time you've spent on deviant art over the years? When you talk about
so
Tifa that way.
because I don't give a
Canon.
single shit about Final Fantasy VII up until I played this game.
Likewise.
And then Tifa shows up, and like I knew about these characters from like internet culture. I knew like Sephiroth's vibe because of the internet. I didn't know really anything about Cloud because not a ton of people were like huge Cloud
Unknowable.
stans or whatever. But like Tifa had this huge following, and I'm like, oh, is it because everyone's horny for her? That's part of it, but like she is just so fucking cool. She is probably the coolest character of the year for me.
Cooler than
But is she not part of
Astrobot?
Avalanche? Is she
Yeah,
not
like
count
do we
as
need
Avalanche?
do we need to like better define the other
I mean, it's the
alternative
Avalanche
thing
trio.
here? 'Cause
It's the red headband trio. It's Biggs, it's Wedge, it's Jesse.
Yeah, so
Jesse
we probably
Ryan.
need a
Right.
better descriptor there than Avalanche because technically some of
Barrett
your
is
party is an
Avalanche.
Avalanche.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's easy shorthand. I think it's fine.
But
So
all right,
not Barrett,
you know,
not Tifa.
Hung out with Tifa, you'd have to hang out with Cloud. And who wants to do that?
Isn't everybody in your party Avalanche at a certain point though?
Yeah.
They're kind of all signed on, right?
Is Aerith?
no.
I mean, I don't think they ever come out and say it, but you know.
Wait, if you're
Let's
not
assume.
down, hang on. If you're not down to hang out with Tifa, does that make you Antifa?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
All right. Well, now I'm cutting both.
All right. Point of order.
Cloud is an yeah.
It's pronounced Antifith. Thank you.
Antifith Super Soldier is if you beat the Antifith Super Soldier, you get the best weapon in the game.
We'll cut both.
Whoa! What happened there?
Yeah,
Who's
wait.
got-
Alex cut both.
It is Alex's fault.
I
No,
wasn't
that's
trying
not
to
how this works.
wasn't trying to make that happen.
Jan, you know what? If they're both in threat of getting cut, I'm putting my Tifa feelings aside with you. Cut the party, keep Avalanche.
There we
I
go.
like it.
All right.
Because that is just one person, Ben. One character.
Yeah, but I mean,
Tifa isn't
Jesse's
enough for the
only one
party.
pick.
I like Wedge. Wedge and his dumb cats.
I don't care if Tifa was giving me free drinks all night. I wouldn't hang out with Cloud. I wouldn't.
All right.
He wouldn't even say anything. He'd just be in the corner being sulky and
And then Aerith would be like all doting over him and shit, and it's just fucking annoying. Yeah.
Doesn't Jesse give you your first materia, or like one of the first? Then she's just like, "I got this thing. Here, take this."
Jesse does, I think, yeah.
Yeah, it's dangerous. She wears that cool armor. Just wearing a suit of armor. just
Yeah,
all right.
what's that about?
I don't know. She's cool. She's like, I wear a suit of armor and a headband because I like the environment. Let's do it. Yeah, I like Jesse.
oh man, what about the Shinra guys, Reno and
Oh,
Turks? Because those guys are pretty fucking cool.
Mm,
Yeah, but they work for Shinra.
Oh, but then you have to throw Hojo into the mix, and that immediately disqualifies them. Okay, let's move on from Final Fantasy. We can revisit the Avalanche trio.
There are some I feel more strongly about. I do like this crew a lot. The Wide Ocean Big Jacket quartet. That is a game that would be unbearable if they did not thread a very thin needle of making these precocious preteens and their interested but also slightly detached aunt and uncle into really enjoyable characters. And they do. They thread that needle. They get there. Like, the precociousness is never overwhelming. It actually is just very sweet and heartfelt. I think the aunt and uncle character are also very, very cool and nice in their own way. I enjoyed hanging out with them. I don't know that I would want to keep hanging out with them after that story, but I liked being there for that story and seeing how it played out.
I feel like I might learn something about myself in a good way if I hung out with them. They seem like because I feel like I would go camping and not want to engage in all the stuff. I don't want to sit around the fire and talk, but I feel like by the end of the weekend, there I am sitting making s'mores, and you know what? This was a good trip, Uncle Brad. I did learn a little thing. I did learn a little something.
The only people in that game I don't want to hang out with are the rude teens. Everyone else is cool.
They're rude.
Yeah.
They are very rude. They are very likable, normal, goofy folk in that game. But yeah, it's they're normal. They're somewhat normal. So,
and there's no normies allowed here.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. This is,
Norm core party of the year? No.
yeah, they would be the people at the party you'd look to be like, this party is bad, right? Like they'd come along and be like, what are we doing here?
And you
you'd go
see
sit in
them
the corner and
leave,
talk to
that's
them.
your cue to be like, okay, in about half an
Yeah,
hour I need to be
literally.
out of here because it's about
Yes.
to get even worse.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
really sweet game, really sweet characters. People should check it out.
Not a long time commitment.
No.
I don't want to hang out with the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 skateboarders because they're either older than me or younger than me, and all they want to do is talk about skateboarding, and I don't know shit about skateboarding.
I spent most of my teen years hanging out with skateboarders, and granted, none of them were pros, so maybe they're more interesting to talk to, but I sort of get what you're saying. Skaters, there is a ceiling for how much you can really kind of get out of that subculture, I think.
I feel like Tony Hawk would have a lot to say about his travels, and I bet that dude knows a lot and has seen a lot outside of skateboarding. A lot of these pro skaters that have been doing it for a long time have just been places and seen shit.
Sure.
I'd love to talk to Rodney Mullen. He's an interesting dude.
Yeah, you could talk to Chad Muska about his beats and just be like, they're not.
I don't know anymore.
I
forgot about Chad
that you're
Muska.
making them. Yeah, I mean, Bam Margera is not in this game, so there's like that. But take that, or it's a positive or negative, I suppose. Riley, so I'm looking at the
young skaters.
I'm looking at the models, the like in-game models, select screen characters of all these skaters, and Riley Hawk looks like he has a quantity of very middling weed on him at all times.
Wait, so do we actually want to hang out with them now? Hold on.
I mean, he'll still share it with you. He'll pass. He'll pass and joke, you know.
I don't know. I find professional skateboarders fascinating, and wouldn't mind hanging out with them for a little bit to be like, so what's that like? You see, my body is dumb. How do I skate? Like questions like that. Like the Tony Hawk Trick Tips DVD doesn't answer the question of like, what if you're just dumb and you can't make a skateboard go? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not like married to him on the list, but I don't necessarily think it's like an instant cut either.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just having hung out with a lot of skateboarders over the years. Simultaneously, I would love to hang out with skateboarders because I'm used to it, but also I've maybe had my fill.
Yeah, I think there's an era, right? I feel like an era both for skateboarders and for me, and both of those things have passed. Where like in the pre-Jackass Big Brother magazine days, I bet it would be really fun to get in a van and go watch a bunch of pro skaters do a bunch of demos and then just fuck shit up every night. But I don't. I feel like maybe
if I was hanging out with them on the street recording the next Birdhouse tape, yeah, I bet that would be a good time. But these days, maybe not much.
Yeah.
Always seemed like always got the vibe at events that they would rather be anywhere else, but they were there, which is kind of a good thing, I think. They kind of did. They did not fake it enough to to be like athletes when you go to events for video games would be like, love it, this is great. And I feel like when you'd interview the skateboarders, they'd be like, I don't know. They called me up and said like, come down, and like I got a call on my phone from a friend. I love video games.
I feel like sometimes even Tony Hawk, who is probably the most media trained or the skater that has probably done it the most, and maybe that's why, I think even he's got that vibe sometimes when I've seen him places at some of this stuff where, and we've interviewed him. It's been, and not to say he's not cordial or nice or whatever, like, but at the same time, there's an aspect of just like,
he gets what it is.
Yeah. I'm here to do this thing. Fuck. That's right. Which I totally respect, because on some level, I'm there to do that thing, and it's like
that's right. Are we both here to do this thing? Let's cut the bullshit.
Yeah.
How many?
We got jobs to do. Let's just fucking exactly. Like, so what's your favorite level? Is it still Downhill Jam? You're still wrong. All right.
The crew from Spiritfarer is they are they're a good bunch. There's a good bunch on there. Giovanni, maybe Scoundrel. I don't know if I can get behind everything Giovanni's got going on, but it's a good crew.
Yeah, I mean, Giovanni is definitely the biggest dirtbag of all of them, but like even he is still very nice to you, and I will have to spoil a little bit here to kind of give some context for this stuff, just to kind of give people a sense of like who these characters are and why they show up under boat. Stella, the main character who becomes the Spiritfarer, these people are all figures from her previous life. They are all people that she has known in her previous life, and they are kind of floating into the space, you know, so that she can kind of not only so that they can find peace, but that so she can make peace with them and her life. So like in the case of Giovanni and his wife, they had a very tumultuous relationship, and you know, Giovanni was kind of a cad, and you know, kind of fucked around a lot, and you know, his wife was very distraught about that. They were all
Astrid. Is that the Astrid? Is that?
I believe so, yeah. And so, like, but you know, the context for them is that they were an old elderly couple that Stella knew in her life and sort of acted as surrogate grandparents for her during her life. So she has this relationship to them, and they're sort of, you know, messed up relationship that they nonetheless still love each other, even though they probably should have stopped a long time ago. And every character is kind of like that. Like there is an aspect of them that is challenging or in some way, you know, causes strife, but it's never really like there isn't any one of those characters that I disliked at all. Even Giovanni, shithead that he is, like he's such a, you can see why people were gravitating towards him because he is a charmer. And all of those people, like, even, okay, the one exception being the fucking professor guy, the dog who is like the teacher. That guy is on some other shit. But even there is a certain amount of catharsis around that character once you kind of get through their arc. It's a really well rendered group of characters that are all flawed in their own way and distraught in their own way. But the way they tie into Stella, her journey, kind of the life that she's led, like you understand why she would, in some cases, you know, she had to spend time with them. In some cases she didn't. They were just people that she knew. And I don't know, like they're all really well drawn in a way that made me want to hang out with them, even if I thought they were kind of up to fucked up shit.
And they're all open for a hug. You know, they're, but not too many hugs. You know, like sometimes they'll be like, "That's too many, that's I've been hugged too many times." I also don't want to eat any more mac and cheese. You made that for me every night, which is kind of a problem.
They understand boundaries, which is important.
Yeah, they all want their own house, so they could not annoy you, which I also appreciate. Yeah, they're good. That's a good bunch.
I think they're top 3 for me. Like I actually think those characters are great, and I think that I genuinely want to go hang out on that boat again.
Cool.
Sounds like a contender.
I am the one who wrote Last of Us Part 2 on here because I thought it might merit discussion. I am extra the one who wrote a question mark next to it. Because, for example, I think that Abby became a pretty sympathetic character for me over the course of that game, which is part of the point of the game. I find a lot of her crew from Seattle to be basically insufferable.
I liked Manny. Manny was nice. He was feeding his dad. He was the one with the accent.
Manny, the one with the man bun?
Yes.
Oh, man. Manny with the man bun. Yeah, he was okay. I'm mainly thinking about the love triangle between Abby and the dude whose name I can't remember, and the weirdest video game sex scene in history. And whatever.
If we want to have a weird sex scene category, we could go pull up all the cyberpunk stuff because it's just like
Killer 7.
Yeah,
it's called the Astrobots.
I don't know. I like Dina. I know, Jan, you mentioned you like Dina.
Yeah, Dina's great.
Jesse's cool.
Lev is really neat. How curious they are with being introduced to like modern technology because they were raised in like a cult.
Yeah, crazy backwoods cult. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to think who else was there. I mean, I don't think this is the strongest entry on this list by any means.
No.
But
yeah.
That you're having trouble pulling some of their names isn't selling.
No, that was everybody. I was just trying to make sure we didn't miss anybody.
Yeah. Okay.
There was some decent camaraderie there between some of them, but yeah, I don't think so.
In terms of like wanting to then hang out, you got to buckle up. Like if you're gonna pull this, you better get down, get some tea brewing because we got a lot to talk about here. and you know, you want to hear some stories because they're living in a tough world. I don't know what you're gonna do to hang out. I don't think you are breaking out like Boggle and everybody's having a good time. I think I don't know what you're doing.
Not a fun bunch.
Yeah, you might hang out, play a little acoustic guitar.
You know what crew has a lot of tough stories and hard times are the bad guys from Mario. And so that's why it was so fun the first time I stumbled into one of the little secret hidden cafes. Basically there's I think there's like one in each dungeon, right, Vinny?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. They're like hidden,
and
you gotta find them.
Yeah. And I really liked all of those moments. They're really great because you get just like a Goomba and a Koopa talking shit about working for Bowser.
It's it's the Mario as theater, and that is the break room where they're hanging out, it's where the Dry Bones is sleeping because Dry Bones hasn't had a break in a long time. Did a double shift, and it's exhausting. Don't bother him. You know, it is everybody just complaining about work while they're getting served some coffee.
I like them a lot. Those are maybe some of my favorite moments from the game. I just think that there's not enough there in any one of them to like really stick around.
It seems like you're more into the vibe of the space than you are specifically any of the people that are in it. It's like you want to go to those cafes because you will hear interesting stories and there's a vibe there that you want to hang out in. But like who is actually there is less important.
I would play that visual novel for sure.
Yeah, I think I like the behind the scenes, hearing the shop talk about having to go back out there and walk back and forth for another 6 hours because that's my path.
And at the very end, it pulls out and it maps all of the Goombas and turtles you talk to in the game to real people that have worked on Mario games, and Bowser is Miyamoto. It's just Bowser flipping a table and going, "It's Mario time!" It all maps.
Oh no, you've ruined it.
Yeah,
I don't remember if it was in the cafe, but there's that really good line where it's like, there's a bunch of Koopas, and they're like, "Mario got the thing, go stop him." He's like, "What do you expect me to do? I'm a Koopa. I'm a green shell Koopa. Like, am I gonna walk slowly at him?"
Yeah, that game is the writing in that game is a lot of fun.
Is that a short lister? It sounds pretty strong.
No, I don't.
I think Alex, did you say it about the space more than the people in it? Yeah, I think it's more the a scene. Some of those moments are very awesome, but yes, I couldn't name the characters.
All right.
Yeah. I think we need to cut one of these two Hades. Oh, go ahead, Vinny.
Well, I want to hear some 13 Sentinels. The Sentinels.
Okay.
I want it. Are we gonna get spoilers here?
Yep. I put up a spoiler thing for the folks at home. If you're still playing through 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, cover your ears. I put a little ticker bar. Let me tell you about these 13 Sentinels. First of all, there's actually 15 of them.
FBI, please turn this off.
First of all,
there's actually 15 of them.
Fuck this. I'm out.
I'm out.
This will probably get discussed further in further categories and fingers crossed at the very end. But it's your main group of people are these 13 characters. They're all high schoolers. And at first they seem like completely separate characters, but it starts to be revealed that it's an intertwining web, a very complicated web that is being weaved where all of these characters are not only connected because, now they're all in the same high school or geographically they're all in the same place in Tokyo, but you start to see the threads connecting them through time. And that these people have known each other not just for however long they've been in high school, but for hundreds of years. There's a lot of complicated relationships. Like for instance, there's two characters that are from the 1940s that get transported to 1985, but they're both really cool dudes. You get Miura, who's all about loyalty. He just wants to solve stuff. What's going on? He's got his cool little officer hat. There's Hijiyama, who's the person that's all about yakisoba pan. So he's gonna come to wherever you're hanging out with some sandwiches. And on top of that, you have like the characters that are in 1985, and you have the prototypical anime protagonist in Juro, but then the other characters you got also in 1985, Fuyusaka, you have Amaguchi. Amaguchi is like the cool rich kid who has a sick pad who you want to go out and hang out at his place with. But Fuyusaka, and then I forget her name. I think she has red glasses. They're always getting food.
The rabbit girl. She's got the nickname that is because her name. Like, oh boy, Tori. Oh boy, I'll look it up.
There's a lot of names going on in this. It's not because I don't remember them. It's because they always go by either their last name or their first name or a nickname. But I think when you're playing through this game, as far as the story parts, you wind up getting locked out of certain characters, and you want to progress down a certain character's path and trajectory because you just get so involved. There's another character who just looks like Chie, and that's great. Chie from Persona.
Yes.
But you wind up getting locked out of a character's path because you have to progress down another path instead. And I wound up having my favorites that I didn't want to stop playing their story, that I want to continue down, and I didn't want to pick up so-and-so's story. I didn't want to pick up Sekigahara's story because he's odd. But as you progress down his path, you wind up falling in love with his character, and then you wind up sympathizing for him, and then him, he isn't what he seems to be. No one is what they seem to be also on top of it. Also, there's BJ the android, who... that's a whole different thing to unpack, but these are all people that genuinely care about each other, and then seeing the relationships grow from kind of just being strangers or like acquaintances to being like allies, and seeing those relationships grow from there are really neat. Like, there's a guy with a pompadour that constantly picks on the girl with red glasses, and he winds up getting his ass beat a bunch of times, but you see that he has like a heart of gold, and he's ultimately the homie that is there through and through.
He's a
through the whole thing. He's a Kuwabara. He's a Kuwabara. And like, I think the writing in the game, that you just wind up caring about these characters even though you may not initially be invested with them. And to do that with a cast of 13 playable characters and then with 2 more other supporting characters, especially given that the timeline of things is up and down and to the side and left and right, I think is an amazing thing. Also, you're all piloting a bunch of mechs together, which is neat. Do
you think they'd let me ride the robot?
Oh, they would 100% let you ride the robot, Jason. They'd also let you travel through time with the robot, because I'm getting ahead of myself.
Damn. I'd go back to 85.
But even like if we're not taking all of the 13 Sentinels all together, even just like the pairings and the trios of them are compelling enough, and the relationships there, you wind up building such a strong attachment to them that you want to take them out into these combat missions. You want to use them because, like, hey, like, I'm down with you 100%, but then their brain gets overloaded because being in a giant mech will, overload your brain and stuff.
Of course.
We all know that.
Even like the 2 supporting characters that are on the side, like, there's an air of mystery about, like, what are they about? Like, are you an adult or are you a little child? Are you both? And then there's like, there's also a moment where the guy that likes yakisoba-pan is coming to terms with his sexuality, and because he's from the 1940s, he doesn't think it's okay, but then ultimately he's like, you know what, fuck it. I love this person. And that is dope because you see someone coming to terms with what they like.
And I'll add on top of that, if you don't like that person, don't worry. There are 3 other versions of that person. Maybe you will like. Maybe you'll like the version from 100. Maybe you'll like the other version. And maybe. Oh my God! There's so many versions. There's so many. Keep a list. I have to go into this party. Keep a list.
Yes.
Everyone should wear name tags.
No, that won't
with
help.
times below the names.
Yeah,
that won't help.
All right.
Yeah.
But like any grouping of these 13, I would love to attend a party with. Whether
they seem like
strong
contenders. Yeah, I'm fine putting the asterisk.
I support this.
Let's put like 13 asterisks though. Just
I I
just
gotta
15.
admit, I gotta admit, I started giving this whole thing the side eye a little bit when you started going, "Hey, they're actually centuries old. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, it's just like, don't worry. Like every other anime, these high school kids are. It's okay that they're sexy because they're really a billion years old.
Don't worry, these naked teenagers, they're actually 500 years old. I mean, it sounds like it went way beyond that, but for a second there, I was like, "Oh,
No, that's a fair.
I'll get into it eventually. By the weekend, by the time this week ends, but it makes sense. It makes sense. Okay. I'm gonna say. Okay, hold on. I want to spoil my argument that I was gonna say. For later in the week. You know how people say that Kojima is a fantastic auteur, and like, oh my god, the stories he's writing. There's a camp of people that say that and believe that.
It exists.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, oh my god, that's amazing. Okay. Oh, here's a better example. Nomura, Tetsuya Nomura. Right.
Is this a better example?
There's like both camps have a rampant base that believe that like, oh, this person, like, it's such deep writing. Oh my god. The way that this story, I'm gonna put the way this winds up delivering and actually delivering, amazing. I haven't been able to stop thinking about this game. Not levels.
All right.
Let's party with these people, y'all. I'll introduce all y'all.
Okay.
What should I
I'll
bring?
meet all your weird old children people.
You may not want to meet that person though. Okay.
Are they okay to drink with? Because they're technically hundreds of years old.
Perfectly fine.
Great.
We'll get sandwiches at this party.
I'll bring flavored vodka.
Imagine introducing someone from the 40s to soda.
I think they might have had
They
that.
had like the real cocaine cola.
Yeah, you had to go to the soda fountain.
From a vending machine, you know?
Sure.
Right.
Just a 2 liter.
Wait, hold on. That's your mind-blowing thing to show somebody from the past is a vending machine? I mean, it's
Yo,
pretty good.
look at this soda. It has 0 calories.
Okay, there we go.
I think they'd be like,
That person with the 40s is gonna be like, see, what's a calorie?
No, I think that person would be like, no, I need calories. I need this. Why am I paying for something with 0 calories? I need those. No, that's food is tough. But you've got so much, you don't need calories. What future? You're just eating for fun. You're just eating for fun.
Land
I
of
bring them back
abundance.
a Big Mac.
Let me tell you about the bliss point.
I support this move to keep it on the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Hades?
Yeah,
Still
so
multiple Hades on here.
Winnow these
I
down.
originally had just the gods on there, and then I was going to be like, we should take them off because, yes, I would love to party with them, especially Dionysus, but I'm pretty sure that's how a lot of people died, is they tried to party with the god of partying, and he said, you fucked up. You cannot party on my level. Also, there are those rooms where they make you choose between the two of them, and then one of them will try to kill you.
Yeah.
But I think the greatest strike against the gods is Theseus the spear boss? Am I remembering that right?
Yes.
So whichever god you do not have a boon from, that god is in the drawing to give their boon to Theseus, because you know how he kind of summoned the god in his like last phase.
Yeah.
And those motherfuckers are helping out that asshole. They are not invited to my party.
They're too capricious. They're not reliable. Like, they're not a good hang because you don't know which way they're going to go. You come to one party and it's like, oh, this is awesome. You come to another one, it's just like you're basic, like, it's just miserable. Like, you cannot trust that you will ever have a good time with these people, because the second they turn on you, like back in hell.
And one of them is your grandma.
Which is weird. I also feel like
a
they're
weird
gonna,
party.
they're going to get out of control and then leave you with the tab kind of thing. They're gonna break shit and then just kind of ghost on you and be like, "I'm a god. Well, I don't fucking care. This jukebox sucks," and smash it. And you have to be like, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't have real money. I'm a god. I hardly have clothes. Do you have pockets? I don't bring a wallet." So yeah, I agree.
Now, you know who's fucking cool?
Go ahead.
You know who's fucking cool? The people in Hades. Achilles.
Yeah, dude.
Fucking cool.
Deuce.
It's fucking cool.
Nyx is cool.
Yeah.
Skelly's out there helping you out.
Skelly. I don't know. Skelly, I kind of want to take a side for a little bit. Next, Skelly, we're going to find you another job.
Doing his best.
Skelly, you're too good, Skelly. Come on. You respect yourself, Skelly.
He's at
I'm the
peace
god
with
of
it.
Hypnos.
It sounds like.
I think like the progression in that game is so cool because when you come back, there's so many like hidden things of how to trigger a conversation with somebody. And it felt like there was always somebody with a yellow exclamation mark over their head in Hades that you would have a conversation with, and it would be interesting. Like it wasn't just like, here's a line of lore. Like the one that's or they're very similar, but the two that stand out to me are Achilles and I forget the name of the dude, but the guy in the third world who forgot his memories, and Orpheus with his muse. I think like kind of learning more about them and then eventually getting like, imagine a party and Orpheus is there and Orpheus is singing, plucking that harp away. Oh, Dusa could help you clean up the mess. Like it's perfect.
Sisyphus is just there. Every time Sisyphus is around, he's throwing French fries and shit at you just because he has them, because he likes you. He doesn't care if he's gonna get in trouble.
Is Cerberus part of the citizens of Hades?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, you need a good dog.
Yeah.
Charon,
Good dog.
that dude's a riot. I love Charon.
Meg seems cool. As a whole, yeah. That's a good crew. I like that.
That's a pantheon I can get behind.
Hell rules, heaven drools.
I've
Who
got a
has
couple
not? Looks like Assassin's Creed and Kentucky Route Zero is all that's left.
Yeah, and those are ones I put on there. So Assassin's Creed Valhalla, there's a whole element of that game that is about building up your settlement. You arrive in England and you essentially just take over an abandoned previous Nordic settlement that's just there, and you start building it up. And over time, there's a bunch of people that come with you from Norway, but there's also, you can add people to meet along the way that will both, sometimes they will just literally go live in your village. Sometimes they just hang out and become part of your raiding party. So, it's different. You can have different Vikings help you go raid some monasteries. Here's the thing. This should be awesome. Because who the fuck doesn't want to go party with Vikings? That sounds like a good time at least once. But the game never fully makes good on it, and it's unfortunate because there are some cool characters in that mix. There are some people that I grew to like over time. Your iron, the iron working dude, whose name I'm forgetting, but there's a whole love story sub arc with him where he just goes off and he meets this lady who speaks in what I assume is indecipherable Welsh, and that's fun. There's a guy who's like a skald, the guy who, sort of writes the songs and the art of the village. And he keeps getting into trouble because he keeps taking people's shit and they're like, no, I made art with it. What? It's an interesting and varied party of people. They just don't do enough with it. Once those those Vikings join your raiding party, they never really talk to you much after that. There are a few characters you get to do some side quests with, mostly in service of romance angles, but they never really flesh those characters out. And granted, I have not done the very, 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 very end of the game. I am there. I just need to sit down and do it. But it doesn't feel like they're going to suddenly throw a whole bunch of side content at you at the point I'm in. And I wish they'd done more with it because there are some personalities I think they could have built on and made a really interesting settlement village full of people. but they just don't get all the way there with it. But the ones that are there are memorable. You get to have feasts whenever you want, and those kind of give you like stat and morale boosts. And that's fun. But just even some of the main characters, like Sigurd, who is your blood brother and the guy who sort of drives a lot of the plot forward, he is all over the fucking place in that game. And his wife, who is sort of left to handle all the administrative duties of the village, you're supposed to maybe consider getting into a romance with her or not, kind of up to you, but you have zero chemistry with that character and she's not interesting at all, so it kind of falls flat. And that's kind of the story of that game, is that they set up interesting things and then they kind of fall on their face whenever they try to do anything with them, or they just don't do anything with them.
Okay. So that's probably goes.
Yeah, it's in another year where there were fewer cool parties, I might have fought for it harder, but I think they don't get all the way there with that stuff. What they do get the developer that does get all the way with their stuff is Kentucky Route Zero. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you this is the most lively bunch of people, that these are people you want to go hang out with anywhere you can, but I really like these characters a lot. So the game starts out. The essential premise is Conway is this truck driver. He has essentially been tasked with doing a final delivery for this antique shop that is going out of business. It is at an address he does not know. It is apparently off the Kentucky Route Zero, which is a place that is hard to find for celestial cosmic reasons. And over the course of the 5 acts, he meets more people, and sometimes they join his group. It starts out with what is her name? I know her last name, but I'm trying to remember the first. Shannon Marquez. She kind of joins up initially, and then like there's a kid named Ezra who has a brother that is a giant flying eagle. There is Junebug and Johnny, the robot musicians I mentioned during the music category. There's a dog that you can name, and he's just a good dog. Like, there's no real story part to the dog. The dog is just there, and the dog is cool. The world they exist in is a sad one. It is it's not exactly a post-apocalypse so much as just a kind of salvaging of America kind of, magical world, and everyone's kind of down for different reasons. And that would be unbearable if the characters weren't interesting or likable, but the game does a good job of making them interesting, making them people you want to engage with without just giving away their whole backstory in giant info dumps or anything. Like, there's a lot that's left unsaid about them that I think is good. Like, I think it's good that they don't try to explain away everything. They don't try to give them super neat and tidy, well, this is the end of their character arc and now they are happy. Like, they don't do that at all. But, as the journey goes along, and I'm going to get into a spoiler for a second here, one of the more interesting things I think it does is they jettison the main character. Like, Conway at the end of Act 4 just disappears, and then in Act 5 he does not come back. Oh. And the reasoning for that is that he gets injured earlier in the game and has to have his leg replaced, and it is replaced with essentially a bone, like, glowing skeleton leg. And later on, he eventually meets up with, they end up in this weird underground whiskey distillery that is entirely populated with skeletons of a similar ilk. And he accidentally drinks this whiskey that he wasn't supposed to, and then he has to pay off that debt. And then eventually he starts to transform more and more into those other skeleton people. And then by the end of Act 4, he just, he's seeing them kind of in the periphery. Like, there's more and more of them showing up around him. And then he kind of starts talking about, like, I think I should just go with them. I think I should just go work with them and pay off my debt and just, and he becomes more erratic. And then he just disappears from the story. So it's not married to any particular one character story or like their arc. It's willing to kind of just sort of let the story drift through and let these characters drift on the story in a way that I found really enthralling. And I know we're not doing a best story category this year, and this is probably the best place I'm going to get to talk about some of this stuff, other than maybe in moments. But I really liked those people a lot. I really liked being in their story and being around them, despite how deeply depressing a lot of that story is. And I think it ends on a note that is hopeful without, like I said, just dumping a bunch of neat and tidy endings on everyone.
So don't cut it.
I wouldn't, but I also realize
I'm
there's other people here who just haven't played this, and I might be the only one fighting for it.
I'm buying what you're selling.
The other thing is there's like nine items still on this list. So what gets cut here?
I just want to say one last thing about Kentucky Route Zero. If we cut it here and it does not find somewhere in the moments category,
I'm not saying to cut that.
I'm just saying when we get to the top 10, you may find Alex to be a little staunch in his need to get it on there. So just throw that out there. Just put it into the wind.
Hey, I think it'll rise on its own merits. I think.
Okay. All right.
But I think you made a good argument for keeping it on here.
So do we think Bugsnax stays? Yeah, I don't
characters.
Like Bugsnax, Astrobots, like those two seem like maybe the weakest cases of what we have left.
I disagree with you about Bugsnax, but because that's, I mean, I would sooner lose the skateboarders.
Yeah, sorry, and the skateboarders. Yes, all three of those feel like they probably go.
Yeah.
The reason I think Bugsnax, I would say, can go, maybe we can all feel a little bit better about it, is I think you have at least 2 or 3 parties with those folks in Bugsnax. So I spent some time. I learned a lot about the folks from Bugsnax. I honestly, I don't know what we're going to talk about if we got back together.
Vinny, I think I'm a little more sore about it because I had an untimely loss that you didn't experience.
You did shock me with the possibility that there could be multiple end. That was a very funny conversation. I really thought you were joking. So that's funny. Yeah, I think now we're in it. Now we got.
Now we're in it.
Let's talk about this list.
We should talk
about Yakuza.
We haven't done it yet. We kind of put it in. We started, and we never really talked about it. So we should do that now.
I think that the majority. I think that most of the characters in your party in Yakuza are fantastic. I think a couple of them. I think Namba gets the most story. And I think ultimately,
doorbell, and I want to talk about how much I love Namba, but after you get the package, god damn it.
I'll save the Namba talk, but Namba gets the most writing. I feel like some characters are a little underwritten, mostly the female characters. I mean, Seiko's the hostess character, right?
Yeah, she is the sister of the other woman who works at the Soapland. She is the twin sister of the other woman who works at the Soapland, and she just kind of wanders into the story and is like, "Hey, I'm here and I'm going to help." And they never really flesh her out the way they do some of the other main party members.
Yeah, but the ones they do flesh out, like I think the 3 strongest characters in the game, aside from our protagonist, are Namba, Junji Han, and Zhao.
Yeah,
right. And that posse is.
I'm thinking about it. Like, I think Adachi is actually a better character than Namba. The problem is that, like, some of the stuff that happens with Adachi feels very loosely attached to any of the plot. It's just like
they also cram a bunch of it at the very end of the game, like in the last cutscene.
But I liked Adachi, whereas I never really grew to like Namba. And I think part of the problem I had with Namba was it's not the heel turn that happens for a little bit in that game, and then he comes back. Like, I think they're okay about like justifying bringing him back in, but I think that they kind of never really find a way to make Namba likable. Like, he's always very curt, he's very sarcastic, and kind of rude, especially to Psycho. But when he does kind of wander back into the good graces of the party, he kind of just loses all his story. Like, there's not really much else for him to do other than exist as part of the party. And like, obviously there's the different side quests with each of the different party members. You get the bar. Right. There's a whole like plot thread for each of them individually that you go through. His is, I think, the weakest of all of them. And I just never
nurse, really right? Like, there's a nurse he has a crush on, and there's that was weird.
But like Zhao, Junji Han, I think to a slightly lesser degree, Adachi are all, I think, pretty well rendered characters, and I think they justify their presence in the party. Emmy is also a little bit of a bummer because they never really do anything with her outside of the business minigame, and her entire
she's like a weird technical.
I don't know anything about
character.
business. Help me.
Yeah.
She's nice. Like, she's very pleasant, and I enjoy her. I kind of wish there was just more story to her other than, I don't understand business, please help me.
Yeah, it is weird because she is like a like, you could not get her in your party if you don't get like high enough on the business mini game or whatever. But the characters that do shine, like that game to me is the like just those scenes where you're at the bar and you're all talking shit. And less so like the specific, like I'm talking to you about your problem stuff, and more of the like in between chapters, we're all talking about the crazy shit that's going on scenes is like some of the best friendship in video games I've seen in a while. You know, just like this group, you like they're from all different walks of life. They have very different backgrounds. I do like that you kind of like you're introduced to the Great Wall of Muscle, and it's like these three clans, and you don't get anyone from the Japanese clan, but you do get somebody from the Korean clan, you do get somebody from the Chinese clan, and you get the just the like you get the lead. I managed to not get spoiled that he was going to join my party, and the moment it happened, I was just like, I literally did a fist pump in the air. He is the coolest motherfucker. His fashion is impeccable. He looks great in a chef's coat. He was my chef class, and he was just walloping dudes with a giant pepper mill.
The thing I appreciated about Zhao in particular is that despite having been the leader of this entire Chinese mafia organization in Yokohama, he clearly did not want to. Like, it's very apparent that he was born into this. Literally, his dad was the previous leader. And he's just like, I will put on these airs. I will present myself as this ruthless leader, and I will do whatever I have to do. But honest to God, I would rather be doing anything else. I would probably rather be a chef right now. And they don't get as weird and over the top with his story as they do, like, say, with Junji Han, who is literally the surviving body double of the Korean mob leader from earlier in the Yakuza series, the Jingawan Mafia. And so, like, he looks exactly like him, but he's not him. He's just the body double that had nowhere to go after that mafia disbanded and became, and he like
says, like, when I die, there will be another one of me to take my place. Like, I am eternal. I'm Batman.
Yeah. It like that is ridiculous, but also I think they do a good job of making that ridiculous fly. I just, there's something for a character as seemingly over the top looking as they dress Zhao up as. He's very low key. He's very chill. And like piecing out his story, like teasing it out through the different interactions, I thought was my favorite of them.
He seems the most human. Like, honestly, like the arc he goes through, yeah, like you're saying, kind of having this insane job thrust upon him and worrying that he's not as good as his father, and kind of having to reconcile, like, is this something he wants to do for the rest of his life, or does he want to pursue, in my headcanon, his career of becoming a professional chef? Because he does cook for you guys at that one scene. That's really nice.
And it's apparently very good. But I also love that the job he's just sort of like moping about having to do is like feeding people to tigers in a restaurant. Like, he doesn't want to be the guy that has to fucking constantly kill people on behalf of this gang, because that's not interesting to him at all, but he has to do it.
I also really like the I forget what they're called in the game, but the little cutscenes that can randomly happen if you eat certain foods with certain party members in your group.
Oh yeah.
And they'll start commenting on it, and then they'll straight up be like, you'll be talking to June, and you'll be eating at a Korean barbecue place, and you'll order like the short rib, and he's like, oh yeah, short rib's really good, but I feel like this is missing something, and it gives you like 3 options of additional menu items to add on, and it'll be like lettuce wraps, I don't know, more meat, or water. And they talk to you for a little bit, and they kind of give you a clue of what to pick. And then if you pick the right thing, you get some dialogue like that you wouldn't get normally. And it's just like, and sometimes you get those prompts where you're walking around town and you hit triangle and a story plays out that you can talk through. Like, the game does a really good job of just like feeding you little bits and pieces of these characters as you play. It's not all like, well, time to do my Zhao side mission and, you know, learn about Zhao. It's like, no, you grow to learn this character through the game. It's really cool that they managed to make a party system work in Yakuza, because it is a series that, like, you know, Kiryu always had allies and stuff, but he never really had like a posse to bounce shit off of. And I think that they took a big risk by making this such a game focused on a group of people rather than just one person, and I think it paid off.
And I mean, the group itself is entirely in Kasuga's orbit. Like, every individual story they have is completely, you know, sort of gravitationally pulled in by Kasuga. And I think that's kind of what makes it fly. Like, even the characters I don't like as much is that you can sense their chemistry with Kasuga, and it's fun to interact with them and see them like comment on the stupid shit he's up to as well. Like, he is the key. He is the friend that holds the group together, and that, like, again, if he doesn't work, none of it works, but it does. And it makes me even like the characters I didn't like.
I just want to say that Ichiban is not only the character of the year, but the only character for this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a huge dumbass who just believes in himself.
Yeah, and everybody around him.
Good
leaves his
Goku
friend.
energy. Good Goku energy.
Huge shonen energy.
So this
This
probably
is-
stays on the list then.
I think it does.
It
Yeah.
would be my pick for this list, yes.
Is this list Yakuza, Hades, and a third?
I
I
think
think
so.
it might be.
Yeah. And I don't
I
think it's Final Fantasy.
There's two on here that I feel strongly about. I think I'm only going to get support on one of them, and that's Spiritfarer.
Okay.
I mean, I'd support you on Kentucky Route Zero. I haven't finished it. I think I was only up to the third act on it, but I liked what I saw. There's very strong character work in that game.
Yeah.
I have not played Yakuza, so I'm just going off of those, off of the dialogue there.
And, you
But
know, I think
I would.
the arguments made about
They're
13
strong.
Sentinels, I think, are strong too. Yeah.
But yeah, I would probably pick Spirit, Kentucky, and 13 Sentinels. That would be my three, just to throw a little wrench in there. So throw a little extra stars.
Yakuza and no Hades. Wow.
Well, I think Yakuza. I didn't play, but it sounds. So I can't really speak to it. And Hades, which I did play a lot of, and has very strong character work. But I think up against the other character work that is going on here, it would be a solid fourth.
This one's especially hard to vote on without knowing, because like Yakuza is a slow burn over 80 hours. It sounds like 13 Sentinels is a similar thing of like you get to know these characters over a long period of time. Based off of the ones I haven't played, just based on you guys talking about them, I think, which is for me 13 Sentinels, Spiritfarer, and Kentucky Route Zero, I liked the argument I heard best for 13 Sentinels.
So is anyone should we cut Final Fantasy? Is anyone pulling for that?
It seems like no one is pulling for that one.
Final Fantasy sorry, Final Fantasy once again.
I mean, I think the people that were for it are for other stuff more, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Jesse.
Oh, it's okay. She'll be fine. Oh no.
I really like that actor that plays Badger.
Yeah, he's on a really funny commercial.
Yeah. So yeah, and I don't know. I like. All right, let me ask you this: Is Yakuza not making this list?
I think Yakuza is making this list.
It sounds to me
Yeah.
there is strong
I-
support for Yakuza.
I would like to see Yakuza on this list.
I'm not super deep in it given how long it is, but what I've seen of those characters interacting is just
Very strong.
it's delightful.
Seems very strong. Yeah.
It's pretty good.
I forget his name. What's the former cop again? What's his name?
Adachi.
Adachi, right. I'm surprised we didn't throw him in for best dad. He's like a uncle
I
figure.
suggested that the other day.
Oh.
He said, "Shut me down." No, we didn't talk about it.
We thought Arakawa had better heat.
And somebody said he found his dad, so I didn't put him on. God damn it!
No, I still don't think he would have made it.
He's kind of a lovable scumbag, though. So maybe
He brings his own whiskey into a bar.
yes. He fucking rolls in with cup sake into the bar instead of patronizing the establishment. Fair enough.
That's living.
Frugality.
Oh, I did really like the part where Namba drinks the really expensive alcohol and then you fill it back up with cheap alcohol. And then later you found out the bartender already drank the really expensive alcohol and had already filled it up with cheap fake alcohol.
Man,
That
what a
bar's
game.
great. What a
The
bartender,
sitcom
too.
is always great.
That bartender has an insane presence to him. He doesn't have much to do in that game, but that man commands the bar.
Mean, anyone with a giant facial scar usually has at least some presence in the scene. So, God,
Oh boy.
2 gotta go.
I just like the characters in Spiritfarer so much.
Yes, so do I. Yes, they're very good.
So are we talking Yakuza 13 Sentinels Spiritfarer?
I mean, Hades, though, like I would pick Hades over 13 Sentinels, but that's only because I haven't played 13 Sentinels. I think the argument for 13 Sentinels is quite strong, so I don't want to dismiss it out of hand.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too. Is I like those characters in Hades, and I think they're a fun bunch. They're one of the funnest bunches of the year and all that. But the 30 Sentinels argument seems pretty strong to me, so I would be willing to let it go. And I think what you're saying about Spiritfarer makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah.
I mean, I could live with it. I'll miss you, Thantana.
I will miss Hades.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm perfectly fine with that.
I can live with it.
Hades and Sekiro Zero, is that what I'm hearing?
I can live with it. If I'm having to choose between my children here, I think Spiritfarer is the boat I want to hang out on a little more.
I'm glad all 13 of mine made it.
Yeah. All right.
Now, what wins? I guess
I think
Yakuza?
Yakuza wins.
Does Yakuza win this?
Yeah.
That would be
Yakuza wins this.
He has the most support.
That would definitely be my vote.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's
looking at this list. These are 3 games building, getting people together and learning their stories, right? And that's what these 3 games focus on. That's their kind of hook. So this list makes sense to me looking at it.
Yeah.
I'm okay with Yakuza winning. It sounds like a game that I would like to play.
Yeah, that's what I feel about the other 2 in this category. I can't wait to play them.
I think I am going to give 13 Sentinels a shot sometime this year.
Oh, I have to finish 13 Sentinels tonight, which is a tall order, I think. But I think I could do it.
Just go back in time.
All right. We're calling Yakuza?
I think we're calling Yakuza.
Okay.
Hold
it. Yakuza Like a Dragon. Yeah, I changed it to Ichiban and Friends. Because you can't forget Ichiban. Are the party of the year.
He's number 1.
The Sentinels from 13 Sentinels and the Boat Buddies. Is that like a phrase that's used in that game?
No, the spirits. The spirits from Spirit.
Spirits.
Okay.
Look, it was somebody just wrote Spiritfarer, and I wanted to specify who, and nobody was saying anything. I knew they're on a boat.
The spirits from Spiritfarer and the Sentinels from 13 Sentinels are the runner-up in this category. Joining the winner of Best Game Feel, Hades, and the runners-up, Ori and the Will of the Wisps and Astro's Playroom.
Good list.
That's
today.
it?
Good diversity of games here.
Yeah. Got 2 more categories. We did it.
Yeah.
It's
Hooray.
Day 3 in the books.
I want to take special mention right now, if you're listening to this, to say that tomorrow will be spoilers. That is, there is no the spoiler warning is the entire show, because we will be doing, Brad.
Yeah. Yes. First category tomorrow is the best moment or sequence. Everyone's favorite.
Classic.
Which is basically nothing but talking about story points in games. So be warned.
Yes, you would. Fair warning. If you are sensitive to that stuff, it might not be the one you want to tune in for.
Then obviously on Friday, as we build our proper top 10 list, that will also
Probably some more of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of
Maybe
story
little-
specifics from here on out.
Yeah, maybe a little less so by then, but still certainly a danger if you're sensitive to such things. So, all right. Well, thanks to everybody.
Wait, what
for
else
joining.
tomorrow? No, we said one of them.
Oh, did I not say the other one?
Mm-mm.
No.
Best moment or sequence and most distressing game. So, buckle
Look
up.
forward to it.
Be the best of times, the worst of times.
Oh,
We'll get
yeah.
Right and early tomorrow, we will get into it. So, yeah, thanks everybody for listening. See you back here tomorrow for day 4 of Game of the Year.